related to Ukraine. You know that in these hours, the 27 head of states meet in Brussels with a bold agenda. And one of the points is to try to agree on this reparation plan for Ukraine. So the single question is, are you confident that they will succeed to find a solution? And the second one is, earlier this month, yes, ECB said we cannot provide a backstop for, to use the frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine. Simple reason, it would likely breach the treaty, prohibiting monetary financing is the other point. But in these several times, shouldn't the overriding interest of the people of Ukraine to have the right to rebuild their country and live in peace not come above all kind of purely factual legal considerations? And as you said before, for the case of Mrs. Schnabel, would it be possible to maybe look at it again, if the question is again raised? Because there is overriding interests of the people of Ukraine that may be above pure legal considerations. So I would like to have your point on this.
Well, thank you for your question. Your first question, there is work going on at the moment. Again, it's not our remit. It's for the leaders to decide. And given the importance of the matter, given what is at stake, I am fully confident that they will find a solution. It might be in the usual European way, going in circles and being time-consuming and giving rise to a lot of speculation as to whether it will work, it will not work, there will be one camp or the other. But I'm confident that they will find a solution, because it's too important. We are an area of the world which praise itself for respecting the rule of law. And this is one of the characteristics of our democracy. The leaders will decide, okay? And I'm sure that there are solutions that can be debated and discussed, and there are constructions that can be elaborated. But it is not for the central bank to actually encourage or support a mechanism under which we would be called upon and scheduled to breach Article 123 of the treaty. This is monetary financing is not allowed under the treaty. You cannot expect me to validate ex ante a mechanism under which.
Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell. We are live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and simulcasting on X Spaces. Thank you for joining. This is an interactive show. If you have a question, type it in the chat, or you can ask for the mic on X Spaces. Please follow me on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All these videos are for free. If you pay attention, you'll learn about how to protect your health, your wealth, and you get a bit of my interpretation of what is going on in current news, what's going on in international policy. So thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. All these videos are for free. Please help support the work that I do. You can donate on my website through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee right on the homepage. It's really easy. You can be a paid member to my Patreon or Substack channel. But again, all these videos are for free. It's through individuals helping support the work that I do through donations, subscribing to the different platforms like Patreon or Substack, and purchasing the great products that I offer. If you follow the protocol that I have been doing for decades, you're going to slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system. So thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to go over a lot of the news, but primarily Trump's speech, what's going on with Brown, maybe any new information about the MIT professor that was murdered, go over the inflation data that came out today, and the markets. Now, the markets have opened up, so let's take a look at what's going on there. So the S&P 500 is trading right now at 6,781 with the VIX at 1645. The Japanese yen is trading at 155.37. The yen is strengthening slightly. Last week, it was trading around 157 or so. I still have a target year end for the S&P 500 at 6,850. All right. But that range may be 6,800 to 6,850. All right. So that's the range that year end that I'm suspecting. We're trading below that, but we're not that far away. So it could easily rally in a couple trading sessions and be close to that 6,850. The problem comes in is what will happen with the S&P 500 in the first and second quarter of next year. There seems to be a little bit of a crack going on in the Mag 7, especially with the hyperscalers. Maybe there was overinvestment, too much circular financing within the different companies. It's problematic, especially because of the way the S&P 500 is weighted. So we'll take a look at the price curve at year end and then make a judgment on what to project for first and second quarter of next year. Now, something that you also need to understand is what's going on with energy. Natural gas is trading at 4.131 and oil is trading at $56 a barrel. Oil cannot stay at the 55 or below range for very long before energy producers start closing the tap in the United States. All right, there are 3 different breakpoints depending on the efficiency of the well. $60, 55, and 50. All right. So if you have a very efficient well, then your break even is 50. If you have slightly less efficient, your break even is 55, and then another key point is 60. If you average them all out, it's closer to 60. So it depends on what field you're looking at. How long has it been in use? What sort of technologies are they using? Right? Because there is a lot of technology going into petroleum engineering. A lot of people don't realize that, but so be it. So it's suppressed, especially in barrels of oil. Natural gas trading at the 4.2 to 4.3 range in December makes about some sense. Right now it's trading at 4.127. Pre-session it was trading at 4.2. I'm longing natural gas, all right, in the futures market. I'm also longing oil. Now, for WTI. My thesis here is one, we're in the winter season, so natural gas is going to be more expensive. Feedstocks for electric power primarily are coal and natural gas. That's going to be generating the power that is needed for the AI servers. In addition, we're going to probably strike Venezuela soon here. I'm surprised that we haven't did our major strike on Venezuela already. But when it does happen, I suspect that there's going to be a surge in energy futures. Most of the surge is going to be in crude oil, not so much in natural gas. You might see maybe 0.1 or 0.2, maybe even 0.3 increase in energy futures for natural gas. But I think you're going to see a $4, maybe even a $5 blip that won't last for very long. And that's what I'm waiting for. All right. What I did notice is that when Trump was about to do his speech last night, after hours trading was starting to tick up for energy. And then it started to come back down after his speech. Because he didn't really say that he was going to hit Venezuela. I was waiting for that. I really thought he was going to say something. Many people thought it. So we're still waiting. I suspect that we're going to have a 55, 56, 57 trade for crude oil, WTI, pre-Venezuela hit. Once the Venezuela hit happens, then we're going to see a $4 or $5 blip up. So that's what I'm doing. So I just told you how to play natural gas, how to play oil based on the Venezuela play, and my target for the S&P 500 is 6,850. Okay, with that, let's plug a product, and we'll begin the show. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. Please share the links. Ask your social media to follow me. You can also follow me on X, GETTR, TikTok, lots of different ways to follow me. Please help support the work that I do, all right? Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and help you to detox. It's something that you can take every day. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. And this will allow you to urinate the toxins, the chemicals, the heavy metals within 6 to 8 hours out of your body. And when you do that regularly and you're drinking filtered water and you're staying away from processed foods, what will happen is your body will get healthier and that your immune system and your endocrine system will perform better and your body will slow down its aging process. If you're full of toxins, you're going to age faster. And your body isn't going to perform as well. But by detoxing regularly, which this zeolite will allow you to do, you can take it every day, and it'll help you to get into homeostasis. Another great supplement to take to help to reduce the load on your pancreas, because no matter how healthy you are, your pancreas doesn't function as well compared to when you were a kid. Digestive enzyme complex helps to bring down that load on your pancreas. It has the enzymes that you need to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Allows you to absorb your nutrients, so you'll be able to get that nutrient into your body easier. It has bromelain, which is an enzyme that helps to break up clots. So it helps with your cardiovascular. And it has the proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins, which is super important for times like the winter season when a lot of things are floating around. All right, so getting the digestive enzyme complex is really important. In addition, if you're an athlete, younger or older, you'll benefit from the digestive enzyme complex, because by taking the digestive enzyme complex with your pre-workout fuel source or your post-workout fuel source, it'll allow you to break up those nutrients faster and get them into your body and into your muscles so you're recovering quicker. So this is a great supplement to take. So great stack, digestive enzyme complex, and the zeolite. Please go to my store, use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All righty. Let's listen in on the Brown University right now.
So my next guest knows too well about these sorts of searches and investigations. One of the things that he has mentioned is the jacket that this person in this image is wearing that he believes could be significant potentially in tracking this person down. Former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis led the city's response to the horrific 2013 marathon bombing and served in law enforcement for 35 years. Ed, it's good to have you with us. Obviously, this is such a tragedy in this pre-holiday period for the families who have lost these 2 young, promising students, and also for those families who are so devastated and concerned about their young ones who are in the hospital and hoping that they're going to recover. As you look at this search and you see this second image now of another individual, and you think back to looking for the Tsarnaev brothers We remember the younger brother was finally discovered in a boat, hiding in a boat. What are you thinking about as you watch this case unfold, Ed?
Hi, Martha. It does bring back a lot of bad memories of that terrible week here in Boston. You know, this new photograph that's come out could be a photograph of a witness. It could be a photograph of an accomplice. It's hard to tell exactly by looking at it. But what I think about is the fact that there are hundreds of investigators out there going through millions of bytes of information, digital information, in downloaded camera footage, and it might take a while to sort through all of that stuff. We are seeing promising leads. You mentioned the jacket. I think that's a very good lead that detectives will be running down. And the other thing is, if you know this person, you are going to recognize him. And that's why I think that this will be solved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Number one, we know that any piece of information, like a jacket, can be cross-referenced, especially now with AI, figuring out, you know, what brand is this jacket? What are the stores that sell it? Chasing down those records in all of the local areas to see if perhaps they can identify who bought that jacket. And on the other hand, and I remember feeling this way when we watched the hunt for the Tsarnaev brothers, that there were individuals out there who knew who these people were. What is your hunch about this, about whether or not somebody is about to come forward?
Well, that's a very good point, Martha. And I think what people have to remember is, as soon as we released those photographs, their friends recognized them, but they were afraid to say anything. And in some cases, they even tried to cover up for them. They destroyed evidence. They went to their homes and destroyed evidence. So I think what you have to remember, if you're acquainted with this man, is there are serious ramifications if you don't do the right thing. And it's not time to be concerned about the shooter. It's time to be concerned about the victims' families and the whole community that's been affected by this, especially around Christmas. It's just horrible.
Absolutely. Ed Davis, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today. We'll keep you in mind as we get some new developments on this. We're going to get a news conference.
We're going to go back to Fox News talking about the mayor not for being clunky with his messaging due to the Brown shooter manhunt.
I have a Fox News alert for you. The Brown University shooter is still at large as the manhunt continues. Rhode Island's Attorney General says investigators are not discouraged, though.
There's an enormous amount of energy for people who have been working as hard as they have been. I'm really quite impressed by that, frankly. And there's no discouragement among people who understand that not every case is a case that can be solved quickly. In my view, they get solved. It's just a matter of time. In this case, will get solved too.
So police are now looking for a second person, someone, quote, who was in proximity of the person of interest. They're trying to track down. Retired FBI Supervisor Agent James Gagliano joins us. Now, James, you know this job very well. The police does this sometimes when they're looking for someone. They haven't been able to reach them, but they feel like there is someone else that was close by that could shed more light on that person. Where do they go from here once they identify this person?
Well, Lawrence, I think it's two different things. One is the investigation, and people are rightfully concerned about how long it's taking. However, we're just going into day 5 here. This is not an anomaly. Investigations take time. I think what we're used to in the past is with mass shootings, most of the time these people either want to die in the process of it or they remain where the shooting takes place. This person was able to get away on a tiny campus that is a quarter square mile by a quarter square mile. It's a postage stamp on a university with an $8 billion endowment and 800 plus security cameras. I think it's mixed messaging. I listened this morning to the interview with the mayor of Providence. And Lawrence, I can say this as a recovering politician and a former mayor. I thought the messaging was wrong, clunky, and indirect. The person of interest is not necessarily a suspect.
That's right.
They can also be a witness.
That's so true, James. And speaking to that concern, because I've been consistent, there's some concerns with the politicians, but I know the cops, the rank and file, they're going to catch this person because that's what you do. The mayor said this, and I want to get your reaction to this because I assume you have the same suspicion. Let's play it.
We will certainly be doing a review to think about where we might need additional camera footage, but we do have a network of technology, including things like flock license plate readers, which are aiding in this investigation. And the men and women of this police department are now going door to door because many of the residences have cameras, which is partially one of the reasons why it's taking so long, because we have to go door to door, but also why we're continuing to generate good new video, because we're looking through people's ring cameras. We're asking them to review their Tesla footage.
James, I hope this was just a politician talk and not understanding police work, because when he said they're now going door to door, I mean, they should have already been going door to door.
Yeah, the canvassing started immediately after you knew that there wasn't an immediate threat in the area. And Lawrence, here's a couple of takeaways. This case is going to be solved, and I'm saying it right here. They will catch this individual or individuals. It's going to be solved on forensic evidence and crowdsourcing, which is putting these videos out. The law enforcement officers have already put out that there's DNA potentially from the suspect. Now, where did that come from? Well, they said it was a 9mm handgun. If it's a revolver, they didn't get it off a shell casing because those don't get ejected. If it's a pistol,
right,
they have that. But they should put that out. And then the other thing, Lawrence, last point on this, let's get rid of face masks. Face masks were banned in the United States when the KKK was running it. We need to ban those because in this instance, it's making it difficult to make the identification.
James, real quick, and I gotta go. I'm only got about 30 seconds left, but I want to put up this imaging of the person of interest right there because it's 4 different camera frames. I think it would be helpful to let us know when they lose his tail, because I think it would show us where some of the evidence is from the public there. I know they're canvassing, but that last image that they have is at 406. We need to know where they lose them, because there could be more information there, right?
Yeah, they built it out. They showed the grid square, the block, the grid squares where they have him on cameras. This is normal, Lawrence. They're doing this concentric circles. They start in the immediate proximity and they build outward. We should have more in the next day or so.
All right, James. We appreciate you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna play the local Fox New York news. Something big is happening in New York. Cardinal Dolan is retiring, and there's going to be a new archbishop. His name is Ronald Hicks from Chicago, I believe. So we're going to play this. This is pretty big in the whole Catholic scene in New York City. This is some big news here. But before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin C and magnesium. This will help with your skin, your brain function, and your immune system. Magnesium and zinc will help with your brain function and your immune system. Stack them together for max benefit. This is important to take every day to boost up that immune system and slow down the aging process. And again, to help with brain function. Magnesium is super important for brain function. Also, magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3, super important. Take it every day, slow down the aging process, boost up the immune system, but especially take it during the winter season. Please, listen to me. Use discount 5, you save some money, and if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's listen in to what's going on with the Catholic Church.
If you're into computers but don't want to spend a fortune on college, you need to check out CBT Nuggets. No, it's not some new snack. It's the best IT training out there.
update. Now, we have breaking news this morning. We're going to be all over this today because the Vatican just announcing Bishop Ronald Hicks will replace Timothy Cardinal Dolan as the next leader of the Archdiocese of New York.
And Jessica Formoso is live right now at St. Patrick's Cathedral with the details. This happened just about an hour ago, right, Jessica? Officially.
Good morning. That's right. Good morning, Kurt and Rosanna. It's the news we've been waiting all morning, and it was just a little bit after 6 a.m. when the Vatican released this information and made it official. Pope Leo announcing and accepting the resignation of Cardinal Dolan and naming his successor, as you said, Bishop Ronald Hicks of Illinois. This is Pope Leo's most important appointment to date, and later this morning at around 8:30, we are going to hear from Cardinal Dolan and Bishop Hicks. They are going to be together here at St. Patrick's Cathedral. They're actually going to have a breakfast in less than 30 minutes together, and then at 8:30 they will be addressing the media. Now, Cardinal Dolan submitted his mandatory resignation to Pope Francis in February after turning 75 years old. This is standard procedure by church law, but the previous pontiff never acted on it before his death in April. The Vatican often waits to make important leadership changes in the diocese if there is lingering abuse, litigation, or other matters that need to be resolved by the outgoing bishop. And we know just recently Cardinal Dolan settled with sex abuse survivors. Now, Cardinal Dolan was named Archbishop of New York by Pope Benedict XVI in 2009. During his 16 years leading New York City's 2 million plus Roman Catholics, he guided the church through the COVID-19 pandemic and, as I said, the ongoing clergy sex abuse scandal, and recently settled with 1,300 survivors. He participated in the conclave that elected Pope Francis in March of 2013, and also in the conclave that elected Pope Leo. Cardinal Dolan is loved by many here in New York City. He is defined, as you know, for his warm, charismatic personality, his humor, and some would say he's down to earth, his down to earth approach. Now, Pope Leo, who is from Illinois, has tapped a Chicago native just like him to lead the Archdiocese of New York. Bishop Ronald Hicks, he is 58 years old, fluent in Spanish, and has spent years serving the poor in Latin America, specifically in El Salvador. We know he has condemned the Trump administration's immigration raids. We spoke to Father James Martin of America Magazine and also the director of Center on Religion and Culture at Fordham University. Take a listen what they have to say about Bishop Hicks.
By tradition, the bishop has to do three things: teach, govern, and sanctify. So proclaim the gospel, govern, just run the archdiocese, and sanctify, participate in the sacraments and all that. Leo, I think, is basically looking for what all popes look for, which is someone who's a good pastor and someone who can do all three of those roles. I think for Bishop Hicks, the fact that he had spent some time in Latin America with the poor is probably very appealing to Pope Leo, who had done the same thing.
Ron Hicks is a very personable, very warm person, but much more one-to-one type of communicator. So it's really a style, and I think that's what you got is that pastoral style, and that openness and that inclusivity and that dialogue approach that will be characteristic of Bishop Hicks, Archbishop Hicks.
And parishioners here at St. Patrick's Cathedral reacting to the news of Cardinal Dolan stepping down.
I thought he was a pretty good cardinal, but we'll see who comes next.
It's kind of sad to see him turn and step down, and it's always beautiful to come here.
The religion always comes first, but I do feel like with his personality, those would be big shoes to fill.
Now, as to when Bishop Hicks will take over, well, that takes some time. We're told possibly sometime in February, but definitely he will be installed definitely before Easter. But again, at 8:30, we are going to hear from Cardinal Dolan himself and Bishop Hicks. Rosanna, back to you.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Big news for New York. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps. These soaps are very high quality, has the structural nano silver that will help to neutralize and help with your skin health. Use them every day. You can get it in lavender, in peppermint, lemongrass, and also charcoal tea tree. So please go to my store, get a few bars for your household. These are very high quality soaps that you should be using every day. And again, it's made from structural nanosilver and it'll help to neutralize. Another great supplement to take, especially if you're 40 years of age or older, is the vitamin B complex. Why? This will help to rev up your cellular metabolism so your cells perform better. The first 4 B vitamins will help the health of your mitochondria, help with the electron transport chain to produce ATP. When the electron transport chain and your mitochondria are healthier, you'll produce more energy. When you have more energy, the cells and the tissues will perform better. In addition, vitamin B complex will help to protect your neurons because it has vitamin B12. Take this every day. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Please go to my store. Use discount 5 to save money. All caps, discount number 5. And if you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. You're going to need that free gift. Trust me. Okay, now let's listen into Inside Edition about, is there a connection between Brown University and the MIT professor? Now let's just think about this for a second. He was gunned down in his foyer in Brookline, Massachusetts. He has the largest laboratory at MIT in terms of number of people. It's heavily funded. He specialized in plasma and nuclear physics. What's the probability of him just randomly getting shot? Especially the day after what happened with Brown University. And it's only an hour drive away. So is it connected? Is there a coordinated hit on certain people? Is this like the 3-body problem in the series where you had a group of, you had in the series, it was an alien, but you had a group that was knocking out people that were doing research to try to slow down the technological progress of the human species. Now, I'm not saying that aliens did this, but the thing is that maybe this is orchestrated. If it is, then we're going to start seeing more of this happening across the country. If not, then it's more one-offs. But it couldn't be random. There's no way this could be random. He was targeted. Why? Who did it?
Slaying of a top nuclear scientist and the deadly shooting spree at Brown University. 2 days after the Brown shooting, MIT professor Nuno Loureiro was gunned down at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts.
Reported gunshots. Father was shot multiple times.
The projectile impacted his wall. The 47-year-old was a renowned professor of nuclear science and engineering, and the shooting at Brown, just an hour's drive away, targeted the School of Engineering and Physics. Coincidence? MIT stepped up security today out of an abundance of caution and in light of recent events.
Is there any connection between the shootings? We have the deadly attack at Brown University, and now we have this.
I spoke with Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University. Is this a crazy coincidence, or could this be some kind of connection?
Right now, I got to tell you, man, they don't have a suspect zeroed in at this point. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is off the table.
The FBI has not established a link between the two cases. There was a somber candlelight vigil outside his home last night. Meanwhile, police in Providence released these images showing a man who they say crossed paths with the suspect. They're asking for help identifying and speaking to the individual shown in these photos who is in proximity of the person of interest. And surveillance video is yielding other intriguing clues, including this gesture, clasping his hands behind his back.
It would not surprise me at all to find out that this individual has some kind of back problem, maybe a hip problem, shoulder problem, and they hold their hands behind their back in order to kind of posture or kind of brace themselves.
That stance with the arms behind the back sort of looks like the way maybe a professor stands as he or she walks around a classroom.
Well, yeah, rather professorial perhaps. I've been a professor for 20 years now. And yeah, I guess from time to time I may have stood that way, but I'm not walking up and down the street like this.
All righty. There's not much, unfortunately, there's not much information about the MIT professor, which I find is a little odd. You know, that most of the focus is on Brown University, probably because it was students that were attacked and 2 died. And not so many people care about, you know, a professor that gets killed in his foyer, especially if they're a nuclear engineer. I don't know. I just think that he was I think the MIT professor was targeted. Now the question is who targeted him? I don't know. All right. I want to go to a video here dealing with mental health problems. All right. This is by Rob Schneider. In the aftermath of Rob Reiner's murder.
"31 out of California, Rob Reiner's son, Nick, age 32, now accused of murdering his parents. He's scheduled to appear in court today, facing the possibility of life without parole if convicted. Meanwhile, we have eerie surveillance video now emerging. This is the scene, we believe, where Nick Reiner was walking by a gas station near his parents' home near Brentwood. Welcome back. It's believed that this was captured hours before his parents were killed."
And all of this is unfolding as the tributes keep pouring in for Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle. Hollywood stars honoring and remembering their unforgettable legacy. And joining us now is actor Rob Schneider. It's so good to have you. And I thought maybe we could just start with where we were talking about in the commercial break about the impact of his work.
Well, I mean, it's the toughest thing in show business is to get a movie made. And I mean, and to try to get a movie that's great. I mean, how many people can say they made one? Here's this guy made 5 in 6 years. I mean, and he was able to do comedies and float and work with children, which is impossible. And then also to do comedies and then drama. I mean, and to make, I mean, probably Tom Cruise's best dramatic film, A Few Good Men. I mean, it turns out that Jack Nicholson's character was more right than Tom Cruise's character after all these years. You know, you need me on that wall. Yeah. So it was iconic, and I really think you know, the greatest eras of filmmaking in Hollywood was the 1930s, the 70s, and you got to put the 90s in there. And I don't think there was a better director in the 90s than Rob Reiner.
Wow. Strong statement. Here's a few of his films that you didn't mention. Spinal Tap, amazing. Yeah. Princess Bride. Stand By Me, so good. Harry Met Sally, Misery, don't overlook that one.
He also was able to do horror as well.
Right.
Rob, what I'm saying, yeah,
he launched careers. Right. He launched careers. That was the thing about it. Like he would, you know, whether it was Kathy Bates, and he just changed.
Yeah, great. What I want to say, Rob, is this. Okay, he made a film with his son. All right, his son fought addiction for at least 15 years, based on what we're seeing. The movie's called Ding Charlie, 2016. This is popping up in my feed all the time now, where he and his father went on an interview campaign to publish the movie, excuse me. His father consistently is trying to communicate with his son through this film because of the addiction. And I think when I watched that, I think Rob Reiner thought he was onto something at that point to help cure his son. And I see the hope that he had and the comments that he gives and answering these questions. You know, addicts are a different breed.
First of all, most of these people, once they become addicted to something, they'll never get out of it. They may have long periods of time of being clean and sober, and then eventually they relapse. So usually what happens is once their brain is rewired because of their addiction, you can't rewire it. You can't get back to baseline. All right, so it's a problem for the rest of their life. That's one issue. But there's a psychological thing that's going on. And that is that when you have a family or a society like LA, like Rob Reiner, even though he may have been a nice person, he was a liberal. And liberals have these, a liberal mentality that anything goes. And eventually, all of a sudden, drug abuse gets into their family. All of a sudden, there's issues because of that drug abuse. Why not having some virtue? God, country, and family. See, if you have God, country, and family, you don't usually have drug abuse in your family. That's just how many Quakers have drug abuse? You ever wonder about that? Or how many people that, now I'm not saying that all religious people don't have problems with drug abuse in their family. But the point here is that it's far less. God, country, and family are the pillars for a more productive and more virtuous society. Not LA. I mean, look at LA. You can randomly pick videos on YouTube and see the drug abuse, and and everyone's in that zombie pose on the street. See it all the time in New York. Liberals have a tendency to end up having drug abuse in their society. Not all liberals are going to be on drugs and but it has the ingredients to create it. So a liberal family usually has liberal kids, and liberal kids have a tendency to not have God, country, and family as part of their ethos, and they fall into the trap of drug abuse. And then once they're in the addiction phase, it's very hard to get them out of it. And even if they're out of it, it takes constant effort to make sure they don't relapse. This is a problem with liberal society. Liberal society causes this. So I don't really care on how great Rob Reiner was as a person. He was a liberal. His family was liberal. And the sad thing, the sad thing is that when you start looking at like Hollywood, a lot of it is run by liberal Jews. And liberal Jews pushed LGBTQ, LGBTQ, or whatever it is. Liberal Jews start pushing atheism. Liberal Jews started saying, oh, you know what? Porous borders are okay. Liberal Jews started saying, you know what? We can have, we can rewrite history and not really be too patriotic, and only focus on the bad of the United States. This is the problem here. And the liberal Jews have lost the affinity of what it meant to follow Torah law. Liberal Jews don't follow Torah law. They just don't. That's the definition of it. They don't come from a law-abiding group. So LA's problem is over a liberal mentality. California used to be a place where there was opportunity. And we're talking about the gold rush, right? And expansion of the Western frontier. And then all of a sudden, over time, San Francisco gets built up, LA gets built up, right? And you got the surfer dudes, and you got this, the land of the fruits and nuts, right? You got Hollywood. You got this fakeness. Just like what Rob Schneider said, it's hard to get a film made, to get financing, to get the people to buy in and get the investors. So you have to have a certain mentality. This is the part of the reason why LA hated Trump so much, because if you happen to be anywhere 1/100th of an affinity molecule in your body to Trump, you wouldn't get your film made. You wouldn't get work if you were an actor. You had to be anti-Trump. So there's groupthink. Rob Reiner, it's a shame that he had to die the way he did. But the thing is his kid ended up the way he did because of the family, because the way the family was with the way the family dynamic was, in the environment that they became wealthy in, produced this fakeness of LA, this fakeness of California, this liberalism of California. Is it good for the society? No. 80,000 people, 50 to 80,000 people a year die from drug abuse in the United States. You can thank the liberals for that. And then they want to, legalize other drugs, which are usually gateways. And then you think that the society is going to be productive? No. Rob Reiner's family, because of their liberalism, was a big part of the problem. No one's calling them off on it.
And Rob Reiner and his wife knew that.
Well, Dr. Drew Pinsky, I mean, he knows much more about this than I do. But you're not.
Yeah, Dr. Drew, the psychiatrist. Psychiatry is in its infancy stage. It's like in the Middle Ages in terms of how they understand the brain. It's not a science. It's almost like a pseudoscience. They have no idea on how the brain works, and they're using all these psychotropic drugs that are causing even more problems. So Dr. Drew is part of the problem. Part of the problem. In terms of psychiatric care is in its infancy stage and on the body of knowledge and what's true. They don't even know. Psychiatric medicine is bullshit. It's bullshit medicine. Now, it's even more bullshit with psychology. Now, Dr. Drew also has another problem. He's a celebrity doc. He would rather talk in a microphone than actually help patients. And don't forget, he was really slow to understand what was going on in 2020. Really slow. That's because he didn't understand the immune system. He didn't understand virology. He didn't understand the nefarious aspects of the military-industrial complex. And then all of a sudden, he realized that he can make money on a podcast. And then he started becoming an anti-vaxxer. And then he started becoming, well, wait a minute here. There's definitely a problem. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That's what you get with the psychiatrist.
Son, that you know your family member, but it's not the family member you're dealing with, it's the disease. And we have a gigantic mental health problem in the United States. And
and that gigantic mental health problem, it starts with understanding the foundation. Where's the virtue in the society? God, country, and family. You don't have that, then you have a shaky foundation that could go down the road of drug abuse and go down the road of mental health issues. And if you put up on a pedestal a society of fakeness, like LA, like Hollywood, and at the Oscars just clap, oh, you're such a great person. Really? What actor or actress is a great person? Now, there may be very few, like maybe 1% of the pool. But 99% of them are asses, are self-centered. But he's right. Schneider's right. There is a gigantic mental health issue in the United States. But do you think that the mental health issue is going to get better if you legalize all these drugs? If you overprescribe nootropics? Dr. Drew? Do you think that, Dr. Drew, I'm talking to you, Dr. Drew, do you think that the mental health crisis is going to improve with your pseudoscience called psychiatry?
HHS Secretary Kennedy. We also have to look at the effects, positive and negative effects potentially of some of these psychotic drugs and antidepressants.
No shit.
And I think that this is a discussion that needs to be had.
It's really simple. I know a lot about chaos theory. And I'll tell you, if you have a system, any system, financial, biologic, galactic, international affairs, it doesn't matter. If there's feedback loops, positive and negative, there are emergent properties that take hold that can't be fully modeled. And when you're dealing with these psychiatric medications, because of the feedback loops between neurons and neural networks, guess what? Bad things happen. Thank you, Dr. Drew.
Now I think we really need to focus on honoring a man who gave so much to Hollywood and who loved comedians. I mean, he hired, like, Kevin Pollak was probably one of the best comic actors we have. And my buddy John Lovitz. I mean, he loved comedians, stand-up comics, and while we may have had political differences, I mean, the funny is funny. And this guy, sitting with him and my parents, watching All in the Family as a young kid, laughing, all of us laughing. And that's something where 30, 40.
What's interesting is that Rob Reiner is a liberal. End up having his kid killing him because of drug abuse. And where did he get his real break? On All in the Family, where you have this one, I think it's Chicago. I think the setting's in Chicago. And you had Archie Bunker, who's like a racist, blue-collar worker, right? Sitting in a chair and complaining about the whole world. Sounds like most of America, all right? And his son-in-law is Meathead, played by Rob Reiner, right? This is playing in the 70s. I remember watching this, actually, as a kid. It was pretty funny. But the thing is, what was the problem with Meathead? He was a liberal. And I believe in the show, the Meathead and his wife ends up moving to California, I think it was. But the point here is that liberal. He was a liberal in the show. And you had Archie Bunker being that conservative person, common sense, hardworking American, complaining about what was going on in the world. Rob Reiner, Meathead, his real life was a liberal, causing problems in society. People need to understand liberal mentality fucks things up. It's socialistic. It wants to erode constitutional freedoms. The very foundation of our Constitution is from John Locke and the Enlightenment, with the life, liberty, and property. But liberals want to take away your property rights. Look at what's going on in New York with Mondani. So Rob Reiner is part of the problem. He wanted to erode your life, liberty, and property. He wanted to erode the Enlightenment. Now let me understand this. Do I think that John Locke was a little bit smarter of where society should go, or some dipshit from LA? Rob Reiner. I would think John Locke has a little bit more to say.
Watched and agreed and discussed important social topics at that time for laughs. They weren't trying to score political points.
I was just saying that yesterday to Bill, like one of my great memories, sitting all together in the living room and laughing about Meathead and his antics.
Just the fact he called him Meathead, and he called.
Yeah, but the thing is Meathead was a liberal. Archie Bunker was a conservative. That's happening in the 70s. Fast forward to 2025, what happens? Rob Reiner is a liberal, and his kid with drug abuse issues ends up killing his parents. Do you think a liberal family is a good idea? I don't think so. Especially in LA. Now let's think about this. Rob Reiner was a very successful individual in terms of monetary success. His kids were given huge opportunities that most people in the United States aren't given. And they end up creating a sack of shit kid. Maybe Rob Reiner's kids should have served in the military and earned some respect, earned some idea of self-sacrifice, and build that ethos of God, country, and family. See, here's the problem. We got a bunch of liberals living high on the hog, given lots of opportunity, and they think that they are too good to serve the military. They're too good to actually do something over and beyond themselves. I would like to know how many people within Rob Reiner's family actually served in the military in the United States. I don't know the answer, but I suspect very little. Very little. Now think about that. Most socialists, most communists, what is the common theme? Even with Marx, Karl Marx, they come from a wealthy family, they end up being lazy, and they push socialism. Even Karl Marx came from the bourgeoisie and was too lazy to work.
His wife, what did he call his wife? Dingbat? You can't do that too.
I could be called that too, I'm sure. Rob, thank you for sharing this morning. We appreciate you,
That's
and we'll keep everyone updated on the court appearances.
Here's the sad thing about Fox. They should have been pushing back and saying, you know what, Rob Reiner was a successful guy, but the thing is he wasn't a success for his family. His liberal policies led to literally the destruction of their family. That's a fact. And oh, by the way, Dr. Drew is still a dipshit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you want to slow down the aging process, take my advice. Get this very easy to digest multivitamin. This multivitamin has the multivitamins you need for proper enzymatic activity so your cells perform properly. When your cells perform properly, voila, your organ systems perform properly. And also take the probiotic. You can get the veggie cap version or the powdered version. By taking a good probiotic, you're improving your gut biome. You're allowing for your nutrients to digest properly and you can absorb your nutrients. You're improving your brain function. You'll be able to sleep better. And when you sleep better, you're detoxifying your central nervous system. You are consolidating memory. You're going to be well rested. In addition, with a good gut biome, you're also improving your skin health and you're improving your metabolism. Please go to my store and get the probiotic. Good health starts at the gut. And don't follow Dr. Drew, the celebrity doc. Get the probiotic and the multivitamin. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right. Let's take a look. I want to listen into Live Now. They published this a few minutes ago about the MIT professor. Maybe there's an update here.
Here on Live Now from Fox, and I do want to get you right back into the headlines here. Police are remaining fairly tight-lipped after an MIT professor was gunned down at home earlier in the week. Nuno Loureiro, a physicist and fusion scientist, killed Monday night at his apartment in Brookline, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. As the investigation continues into his death, there are a lot of questions. So I do want to bring in Sam Mintz, editor at Brookline.News. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to start here at the beginning. Can you break down for me what we know so far about this MIT professor who was killed?
Yeah, we don't know much. Police, like you said, police are being very tight-lipped. They're not giving out any details of the investigation. They say that's to preserve the integrity of the investigation. So this community here in Brookline is a bit shaken, is trying to understand what's going on.
And can you tell me a little bit about Brookline? I know that it is near Boston. Kind of break down what the community is like and let people know out there who maybe aren't familiar.
Sure, yeah. Brookline is a town of about 63,000 people. It's immediately outside Boston, to the west of Boston, on its border. It's a relatively well-off town in the scheme of things here in the Boston area. And it's a town where crime is relatively rare, and this kind of violent crime is extremely rare. It's been years since the last homicide, and maybe a decade or more since the last fatal shooting here in Brookline. So that's some of the characteristics that make it surprising that it happened here.
And one thing that you mentioned is, of course, police are remaining tight-lipped. They have not, it appears, held a news conference, provided a lot of details. We know that Brookline police, I believe, are involved in the investigation. We haven't really heard further about other agencies that are involved. Have we heard about whether or not this is believed to be a targeted attack, a random attack, or is that just one of many questions that we're left asking here?
That is not something that we've been told. It's something that a lot of people are wondering. You mentioned other agencies. I know that the Massachusetts State Police are involved. They investigate every homicide in Massachusetts. The district attorney's office here in Norfolk County, where Brookline is located, is also involved. And one interesting note is that the FBI has said it's offered help, but that so far the investigators looking into this have not taken up the FBI and their offer of help. So that's been reported in several news outlets, and it's something that adds an interesting dimension to this case. But yeah, no information yet given by investigators about whether this was targeted or random. And I think it does remain the big question for many people here in town who are wondering, what that means for their safety, for their neighborhood. Whether there's anyone they should be looking out for, and unfortunately, we simply don't have answers to those questions right now.
And it's interesting because, as you mentioned there, the FBI asking if any resources are needed, and as of right now, the fact that they are not involved in this is just adding kind of that layer of mystery, as you said. Has MIT responded to any of this? Have we received a statement from them or anything that kind of breaks down a little bit more about Mr. Loureiro?
Yeah, MIT has responded, I think, with, shock and horror and, to remember the legacy of this professor, someone who, ran a large center, one of the largest research centers at MIT as its director, had a lot of researchers and students working under him.
One of the largest research centers at MIT in nuclear plasma physics, and just randomly gets killed in his foyer? Yeah. This was definitely targeted.
It's, we've heard from a lot of his colleagues who say, this is someone who is highly respected, who trained students, who had love for his work, who, helps people, understand the work he was doing. He was working on nuclear fusion, really high profile and kind of weird and mysterious, and not in a sinister way, but just in an interesting way, field of science with really big implications for clean energy. He was 47, considered a rising star in his field, even though that's not as young as you might think. But someone who here in Brookline made a big impact as well. He was a parent of 3 children, including in the public schools of Brookline. Someone who neighbors remembered as smart and interesting and personable. So definitely a loss for both of those communities.
And it's interesting because neighbors did gather and students, a lot of people outside of his home after this did happen, and held a vigil of sorts to honor his memory. And there's actually a sign that was on the door right there calling for folks to show up for that vigil if they did know him and honor his life. What would you make of this flow of information from investigators compared to maybe a normal story that you would cover there? We're talking about a homicide, a case that is getting nationwide attention, especially right now. So what would you say about the flow of information to journalists compared to what you've seen in other cases?
Yeah, again, the investigation. Yeah, again, the investigators have stated essentially that the reason for not giving out information is to preserve the integrity of their investigation. I think in a typical case where it's a lower level crime, for example, that I've covered here in Brookline, they would be quick to put out a description. They would say, here's what the suspect looked like. They even sometimes put out photos, as we've seen in many other high profile cases like this. I don't want to speculate on what exactly that means because I simply don't know. It could mean, I think, any number of things, but it's definitely unusual. And I think it's, has really surprised people here and confused them. And, I think like many of us here in Brookline, I hope that we'll have more information soon. And, I'll be calling the police department and the DA's office again today. And, whether they'll say more today, I can't speculate, but we're still waiting.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how that plays out. And if more information is released, if the FBI there does get involved, so many questions here. And I did want to ask you, Brookline police, if you think about it, people have expressed that they are concerned about this, as if you think about it, there's a chance there that a killer is on the loose. So what sort of message have police put out there to members of the community who are concerned?
Yeah, the police chief of police, Jennifer Pastor, put out a statement the other night that essentially said, and this is paraphrasing, but we're mourning the loss of Nuno. We're supporting his friends and family. Our investigation is continuing. The information we can share is limited about the circumstances, all the things that we've been talking about. And I found it striking, as we've said, that it did not note whether or not there was any current danger to residents. I can't be more clear about that. They have not said whether or not there is any danger. They have not made the sort of typical reassuring statements that you might hear from police who often say there is no danger to the public, for example, as they're investigating a violent crime like this. They have not said anything like that. And again, not to speculate on what that means, not to speculate on whether or not there is in fact danger, but there hasn't been any sort of clarification on that, I think, pretty key question.
And my last question for you here, I do want to ask, of course, as a journalist, you are covering news, and then you have social media where folks are sharing theories and information that turns out not to be correct. But, you have internet sleuths and folks who are essentially internet trolls who are just putting out those details. How does that make it more difficult for you as you're trying to do your job and get the correct information out there, but you have folks who are sharing incorrect information?
I personally find it extremely frustrating. In this case, I have seen a lot of misinformation, a ton of misinformation on every social media site, questioning whether this person was targeted because various pieces of his identity, including pieces which are certainly not confirmed. I don't want to be more specific than that because I don't want to spread any of that misinformation. Questioning a link to the Brown shooting, which we all know about. Actually, I should note that the FBI has said in several places they do not believe there is a link between those two shootings at this point. So there is one piece of confirmed information that we have. And it makes my job more difficult. I get questions from our community and our readers saying, is this true? Why haven't you reported on this? And I have to explain, we have a really high standard for the sort of due diligence that we do with this information. These are rumors that we aren't confirming, can't confirm at the moment. And I think it's a problem. It's something that I worry about in the long term for, the sort of information ecosystem in our country, something that's getting worse, I believe. So it's, I wish I had some sort of solution to offer here, but I agree with you. It's a problem. And in a situation like this, it's amplified to 100.
All right. Sam Mintz there, Brookline.news. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the show.
Right. Before we go to the next video, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I want to talk about the first pillar of my protocol. That foundation is the probiotic and the multivitamin. But the pillars on top of that foundation, the first one max 35 or cleanse. Cleanse is 30 parts per million, max 35 is 35 parts per million. You take a teaspoon a day, every day. Swish in your mouth, gargle 20 seconds, and then swallow it. What this will do is improve the oral health and the health of your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. That's super important. What that will do is boost up your immune system and neutralize. Now, if you do this every day, you're going to actually slow down the aging process because you're not getting sick. If you get sick chronically, you age faster. Guaranteed, 100%. You are sick every year, 2 or 3 times a year, you're gonna, guess what? Age faster. Even if it's benign, like the common cold, all right? Takes you 5 days or 7 days to recover. But guess what? It does damage to your cells. And it takes 2 to 3 weeks to repair those cells. So just because you feel better doesn't mean your body is better. So if you're sick 2 or 3 times a year, let's say 3 times a year, 1 week sick, 2 weeks to remodel the cells that didn't go into irreversible necrosis. Guess what? 3 times 3 is 9. 9 weeks out of the year, your body isn't where it should be. And that's why you age faster. So take my advice. It's really common sense. So instead of listening to Dr. Drew, who doesn't have any common sense, start listening to Dr. Paul Cottrell, who has lots of common sense. Get the max 35 or the cleanse. Take a teaspoon a day every day. Slow down the aging process, boost up that immune system. If you're not feeling well or someone around you is not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2. And do the same thing until everything's all clear and you go back to your baseline dose. It's really simple. I've been doing this for over 5 years. It works. Like everything else I say. All right, let's listen into inflation numbers. Now they came in better than expected. So inflation is definitely going down. So my understanding, we'll listen to the video, but my understanding is that headline inflation's at 2.7%, core inflation's at 2.6%. The difference is core inflation takes out food and energy. Okay. Let's listen.
Texas was feeling unwelcome. Now Texas is open door to new TurboTax stores. Meet our experts. They do your taxes, so you can walk out with confidence. Now this is Texas.
Skechers has the perfect holiday gift for everyone. Hands-free, cozy fit Skechers slip-ins. It's a hands-free holiday with Skechers slip-ins.
Economic issue right now, affordability. Now, we were bracing for today's report to show that inflation stayed at 3% in September, but it didn't. It actually slowed to 2.7%. Now, not only is that a 4-month low, that is better than the expectation of 3%. And when you look at the trend here, the left side of the screen here, this is last year. And you can see inflation really was coming down last summer. And then it actually bottomed in April at around 2.3%, right? That was really giving people some hopes that maybe we'd be back to that 2% goal that the Fed considers healthy. And then that's when the president rolled out his Liberation Day tariffs. And you can see how much inflation ticked up, in part because of those tariffs. The good news is that it is coming back down, at least based on today's number.
First of all, I've been covering this for the whole year, all right? So I know this data set really well. First of all, he's not showing you data going farther back in the past, because inflation is cyclical. There's a cyclical aspect to it as it goes up and then comes down. It goes up and comes down. It doesn't. It's not monotonic. So there's waves. He's not showing you the other waves. So he truncated the data. That's one problem. April 1st was when he announced. What did he announce? In 90 days, it's going to happen. April, because he announced it on April 2nd. So April, May, June. All right? And then it ticks up. But how do you have it tick up before June? Oh, that's part of the periodicity, the normal cycle of up and down with the noise of inflation. He doesn't tell you that. He doesn't tell you that. And then some of those tariffs were brought down. Some of them were eliminated. Some of them were negotiated, and they went back up, and then went back down, and then it was postponed. So the tariffs didn't get implemented until way into the summer of this year. So it is impossible that anything that popped up between April to July is part of the tariffs. Impossible. Because of the delay. You remember he was delaying? He doesn't say it, but he had a little comma in his op-ed. Partially. Well, how much of it is partially, dude? When you delay it 90 plus days. See? Clown from CNN. And he won't admit that the poor policy by the Federal Reserve during the Biden administration led to the inflation that we have. And it takes a while for that inflation to start to harmonically dissipate. And that's the reason why you have these waves. Because inflation happens in a harmonic. But what do I know? Dipshit.
Now, we don't know what the inflation rate was in October. That's because the government shut down messed with the collection of data. Just to remind everyone, though, the fact that the inflation rate has come down, it doesn't mean that prices are falling across the economy. It means they're still going up, just at a more gradual pace. Now, let's look at some of the things that got more expensive in November. I think the good news is that gasoline was only up by less than 1%. In fact, gas prices continue to fall this month. Groceries, another major point of frustration in recent years, grocery prices only up by 1.9%. So that's less than the overall rate of inflation. However, there were still some things that got a lot more expensive. Look at this, electricity, 7% almost. Natural gas, which is what people use to heat their homes often, 9%. And bad news for coffee lovers, instant coffee got 24% more expensive year over year. That's the biggest annual increase since 1995. But look, when you put it all together, this is overall encouraging news, John, when it comes to the cost of living. And investors over on Wall Street seem to like it because we see U.S. stock futures have moved modestly higher since these numbers came out. Back to you.
Yeah, those numbers up because I think the inflation number is good on their face and also better than expected. Right there. Although I will say, when you put up those prices for instant coffee, as someone who wakes up pretty early in the morning, my heart skipped a beat there.
Switch to tea. The reason why it was good for stocks is because the Federal Reserve now has opportunity to lower rates even more because they were worried about inflation. Because they kept on saying that inflation because of the tariffs. Well, if it's going down, then maybe it isn't inflation because of the tariffs. Maybe it's the harmonic dissipation from the bullshit that was happening during the Biden administration. But no, we got two great people here that must be paragons of intellect.
Hopefully that's an anomaly. Matt Egan, thank you for this. We're going to keep talking about this throughout the show. With us now, Congressman Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York. Congressman, nice to see you this morning. So this brand new inflation data just in shows it cooling off down to 2.7% from 3% in September. Better than expected. Your reaction to what is some positive economic news?
Well, look, here's what I'll say, that.
Yeah, Trump is never okay.
That individuals like the president's friends have made in AI and those kinds of things, that is what has kept the economy somewhat afloat. But it does not help the average everyday American who is seeing grocery prices, who are looking at the cost of living and the cost of housing. These are real pains.
Now, what I'd like to see is the CPI annual number coming in at approximately 2.2, 2.3. That would be really nice, all right? Because it's really close to 2, which is the target by the Federal Reserve. I think 2.7 is a little bit too high, a little bit. It needs to come down another 0.4%. That would be nice, all right? That would be the sweet spot.
Fix on day one, and here we are about a year later, and it is getting worse as a result of his tariffs, actually, which is a tax to the American people.
Well, but since September, just to be clear, we have.
Yeah, but Trump also said that you're going to get a tax rebate, your tariff rebate. You're going to get the money back, clown. So the Americans, if he's correct, which he's not, all right, because tariffs don't 100% go into the price, the end price. Some of it's absorbed by the manufacturer, some of it's absorbed by the retailer, some of it's absorbed by the consumer. And depending on the type of product we're talking about, depends on what that mix is. On average, it's about a third. A third of the tariff actually translate to the consumer, about a third. But some products it's 80%, some products it's 10%, just depends on the inventory, the competition, the demand for the product. There's lots of variables involved. So to say it 100% goes into the end user's price is ridiculous. But we're getting a rebate back. So it washes it away. It neutralizes it. It neutralizes the effect. Does he bring that up? No, of course not. Because orange man is bad always, according to the Democratic Party.
So people can see. And inflation did go up between April and a peak in September, which you can see on the right of your screen there, Congressman. You can't see it, but we're showing the numbers did go up from a low of 2.4% in April.
Right. Yeah, clown. Show in the data set over a 10-year period how many times did inflation go up in April and increase from April to June or July. Take a look at the larger data set, clown.
.3% in September, but now going down again. And all I'm asking is, does it look like it's headed in the right direction now?
Well, we want inflation to go down. We also don't want unemployment to go up. So if you look at, all of the statistics, you got to look at both. So we see that the number of jobs that were created was down. The unemployment rate for the first time has gone up higher than it's been in a number of years. So, when you're trying to look at this.
He's right about that. Unemployment did go up. It's at, I think, 4.7% now. But more people are looking now. There were a lot of people on the sidelines before. So there's been a surge of people coming off of the sidelines and are now active looking for work. Now, question is why? Is it because of inflation, burning up their savings? Why? Who knows? No one really knows why that's happening, but unemployment is ticking up. Now, I personally think that it has to do with AI, but, we need more time to find that out. But 2.7% CPI is pretty good. Because back in September and August, year end, CPI was projected to be 3.1. Wait a minute here. It's at 2.7. That's great.
Just on how it feels for those who are well-to-do, or how does it feel for the average, everyday American citizen? And how does it improve their lives? And do they feel a difference? And I think that
you can use the same argument. You could use the same argument. The average citizen isn't doing as well as the average congressman or congresswoman or senator. Why are the senators and the congressmen and congresswomen doing so much better than the average citizen? Oh, they have insider trading.
Talk to the individuals who the president seems not to ever meet with or anything of that nature, because those are not the well-to-do who's making these deals on critical minerals, etc., for themselves. So, because it's been very good for them. But if you talk to the average, everyday American, the hard worker, ask them how they feel, and they will tell you exactly how they feel.
You obviously are not supportive of a lot of the president's economic policies, and I imagine would be.
Of course, he's from New York. He's a liberal and a Democrat.
There's a new poll out from Quinnipiac University, which asked, who do you trust more to handle the economy? Who is better at handling the economy? And the results of that show that Americans would still prefer Republicans. 46% say Republicans are better at handling the economy than Democrats. So if the policies are as bad as you say they are, why is it that voters still say they prefer Republicans on this?
I think that if you look at those same numbers, you see that Donald Trump is at an all-time low in regards to the economy. I think that the last poll that I saw a day ago was down to 36%.
Yeah, it's bad. If that's true, why don't they trust you more? If it's so bad for him, why don't they trust you more for the economy, you being Democrats?
Well, I think that they see who's fighting for health care to try to make sure that those costs don't go up. As we know what was going to take place as of January 1st, and they see those insurance rates going up, and some will not be able to afford or have to make a decision between their medicine and buying food. I think that as this continues, and I think that you will see as the president continues to move.
It's a simple answer, and he just keeps on, eating up the clock. People believe that the Republican Party will run the economy better than the Democrats because the Democrats are Marxists. It's that simple. The Democrats keep on spending money that people don't have. And then we have to issue bonds and pay interest and end up having a higher debt to GDP ratio. And eventually, the country goes bankrupt. That's the Democratic Party right there. Not only are they fiscally bankrupt, they're philosophically bankrupt.
Are not improving. I would hope that they would improve, but I think that there's several things for the average everyday American, because I see a huge gap between how individuals who the president has taken care of in his circles, how they are moving in this economy and how they are gaining, and that, when you look at the curve, that makes a difference, as opposed to the average everyday person, some who may not even be invested in the stock market, for example.
This is true, though, in the 1980s. This is true in the 1990s. This is true before Lehman. This is the true after Lehman. This is true before COVID and during COVID and after COVID. Nothing's changed. It's always been like this. It will never change. People that have money, that invest in assets that can appreciate, usually appreciate faster than a wage earner. It's that simple. So instead of whining about it, don't be so focused on being a wage earner and be more focused on saving and investing. And oh, by the way, so many people that are wage earners have invested in the stock market. through a 401k or an IRA or some sort of investment vehicle. So most of Americans that are working are somewhat plugged in to the wealth creation that is happening.
Try to get food.
Joining me right now is CNN Global Economic. Without headway, I can't imagine that I would ever be taking insurance.
All right. And another thing. So he's saying, he's complaining about, food prices are too high. Food prices in some cases are too high. I think that the beef that's out there is way too high. Meats are too expensive, and actually the meat industry is actually complaining that Trump is clamping down on the price increases. The problem is that because of the allowing conglomerates to take place in the beef industry, they have pricing power. We should have never allowed the big ag to get involved. We should break them up. People should pay attention to big ag. The big agricultural companies, they need to be broken up because they have price control, price pressure control, and they can raise the prices because of the lack of competition. So the beef industry is complaining about Trump, pushing back and saying, hey, you shouldn't be raising the prices because of this monopoly you have. The next step is to actually break up those monopolies. All right. But if things are so bad and that people can't eat, then why are there so many people getting in line for Ozempic, the obesity drug? Well, wait a minute. How could you be starving, according to this guy, and have a society that needs to be on obesity medication? It's impossible. It's impossible. Because when you don't have food, your body starts burning down the fat and converting it, and you go into ketosis. Wait a minute here. So is America starving? If so, why do you need Ozempic?
Economic analyst Rana Fruhar. It's good to see you, Rana. What is the story that this new read on inflation is telling you?
It's getting better.
Well, it's saying that things are slightly better. Inflation is something that people feel. It's not just about the statistics. You and I have talked about that before. So even though these statistics show that things are going marginally in the right direction, there's still a lot of pain out there. There's still a sense that in ways.
Usually what happens is that the statistics come in and the actual psychology of it lags. So what happens is as long as the trend keeps on staying stable, 2.5, 2.7 or less, then what will happen is that there's going to be a new normal. People will feel more positive about spending, and it'll move the economy forward. This is the reason why I said just wait it out. Let's take a look at what take place in first quarter of next year to understand what these dynamics are going to be here. All right, especially with the job market. The job market is with AI. What's going to happen with that? And who knows? I mean, there's so many moving pieces. Who knows? But in terms of inflation, the Federal Reserve is getting closer to lowering the rate. So the credit cards and the debt and the bond yields, they typically go down when the Federal Reserve lowers rates. The problem comes in is that if there's overconsumption with the Federal Reserve lowering rates, it's inflationary. So being too generous with the rate cuts by the Federal Reserve may actually blip up the inflation. All right. I subscribe to the monetary policy theory that if you raise rates when there is inflation, above target, then you are suppressing the demand and it will bring down prices. Now, if inflation is too high and you lower rates and there is a transmission mechanism with the money being pumped into the system, if that transmission mechanism is not broken, then it will raise inflation. So the question here is that as the Federal Reserve keeps on bringing down the rate, if the job market is really robust, which I don't think it is, but if it was really robust, it would be inflationary. But them lowering rate with a weakening job market, then they're stabilizing the economy. All right? So as long as the inflation stays where it's at, or a little bit less, in terms of an annual rate, the big question is what's happening with the job market? Is it weakening or strengthening? If it's strengthening, the Federal Reserve should not lower rates because it will be inflationary.
Cost of living, we hear about a grocery store, we hear about energy, but there are these bigger issues of housing, education, healthcare, which is going to be going up in the coming years. So I'm happy that we have a small downtick.
Guess what? If you're healthy, you won't need to rely on healthcare so much. Allopathic medicine. If you take my advice and slow down the aging process and get healthy through a holistic approach that is really simple, proper diet, proper exercise, filter your water, make sure you do some resistance training, cardio, maybe a 65-35 split, heavy on the cardio, heavy on the resistance training side. Do stretching and balancing exercises to activate the cerebellum. Learn new things to activate your brain. Detoxify your body regularly. Stay away from sugary foods and processed foods. Learn and talk to people in the real world. When you do in proper supplementation, bringing down inflammation, soaking up free radicals, when you do these things on a regular basis, you get healthier. And guess what? You won't need a doctor. If the doctor's telling you, oh, by the way, you need to take a statin because your cholesterol's too high, there's ways to lower it without taking a statin. Oh, if a doctor's saying you're starting to have high blood pressure and we're going to have to put you on, beta blockers and all this stuff. Well, guess what? There's ways to actually declog your arteries. So if you just pay attention to what I'm saying, you won't need to be on a statin. You won't need to be on beta blockers. You won't need metformin. What are the diseases in the United States that are so common? Diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. But if you take control of your body, you will realize that you have the power to lower your actual health care by getting healthy. But if you're going to just sit on the couch and eat potato chips, don't be surprised that you have a cardiac arrest. The answer isn't, oh, we need more government intervention and subsidies for healthcare. No. What you need to do is learn on how to take care of your body. If you have a problem, unless it's an emergency, all right? In an emergency, it's different. Let's say if you have a cardiac arrest and you need to go to a hospital, right? But let's just say you have osteoporosis. Do you really think that they're going to be able to help you? They can't. They can maybe treat it, but they can't reverse it. They don't know how. But if you've been paying attention to me, if you do light resistance training, taking turmeric, taking calcium, and and taking vitamin D3 and K2 over a 7 to 9 month period, and doing late resistance training on the bones that have the arthritis or the joints that have the arthritis, you have an 80% chance of remodeling the bone. And you don't need to take all this bullshit medication that's toxic for you. Doctors aren't trained to actually fix the problem. And if you don't believe me, take a look at some ailment that you have when you go to the doctor. Are they really fixing it? Or are they just treating it? And I'm willing to bet 8 times out of 10, they're only just treating it and not fixing it.
In the top line numbers, but I don't think that this issue of affordability is going away.
Yeah, I mean, we have the president's speech last night talking about what he says are the successes of the first 11 months of Trump 2.0, and saying a lot that needed fact checking with regard to successes on economic policy. But if this is, and I watched you last night talking about it, if this is how we end the year, what is the trend? What is the thing that you're then watching most closely heading into the new year?
Job market.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm actually going to be watching the shopping season very closely.
It's a job market.
And I'll tell you why. I think that's going to be a tell about whether we are in a kind of a two Americas world where, all right, you see the top line inflation numbers down a bit. You see mixed numbers about the job market. Things haven't, fallen off a cliff. They're not great, though there's some softening, but is it mainly at the sort of bottom 25%, 50%?
Looking at the job market is a symptom of a disease, all right? Looking at the shopping, let me rephrase it. I meant to say shopping. If you look at the shopping dynamics during the holiday season, that's a symptom of a disease. If the shopping market is poor, or it's a K economy where rich people are still buying, poor people are not, all right? If it's a K economy, that is a symptom of a disease. And what's the root cause of that? They are not confident of their job. Why? Probably because they're concerned about AI. It's about the job market. That's the most important thing. And even the Federal Reserve is saying this. Look at the job market. Is it starting to collapse or not? Now, historically, a 4.7 unemployment rate for the aggregate is actually pretty good. But for the youth, it's like 10 or 11%. That's way too high. It's the jobs. It's not the shopping.
Economic spectrum, are people at the top doing fine? Are they spending? Where are people spending? How are they spending?
I'll tell you right now, the rich are spending, but they're not buying stuff at Gucci and not buying stuff at Tiffany's. Where they're going down a level. They're going down in terms of cost of certain goods. Now, the ones that are on the bottom end of the K economy, they are either not buying or they have really curtailed their spending because they're already at the bottom. They can't trade down anymore. It's about the jobs. How confident do they feel about their job prospects? All right. Okay. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get these deodorants. You'll use them as a daily deodorant, but it'll help to detoxify your body. You can't get a better deodorant. There's nothing out there, all right? So if you look in your medicine cabinet and you take a look at your deodorant and it's not one of mine, guess what? You don't have the best. You can get it in citrus or in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. I guarantee you that your deodorant isn't if you didn't buy it from my store or from Rainbow Herbals, right? Now, it's dual purpose. Use it as a daily deodorant, but it also helps to detoxify your body. And by detoxifying your body daily, you're going to improve your immune system and your endocrine system, and you'll be healthier. I bet your deodorant doesn't make you healthier. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, take my advice, because I'm never wrong, and get the deodorants. And omega-3. Omega-3 will help your cardiovascular health. It'll help to bring down the LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. Bring down inflammation and reduce the over stickiness of your red blood cells and prevent overclotting. Omega-3 is super important for your cardiovascular health. You should be taking it every day, and I don't care what age you are. And guess what? In the United States, heart disease starts at age 15.
At this point, it's
They're not
hard to know
measuring my
exactly.
out-of-pocket costs.
It's not. We can guess that it will push inflation in healthcare up, but we can't have a good grasp on by how much yet. And all this could change because they're blasting that the extension out of the House with the discharge petition. So around the first of the year, they may be able to solve this problem. But that's something to keep in mind and keep an eye on.
Yeah.
See whether it takes money away from people.
And it's serious money. I mean, it's material amounts of money for 22 million Americans. I mean, I would think that would be political suicide. I mean, I'm not a poli-scientist, but I would think that'd be political suicide.
Common sense would tell you that.
Common sense would be like, it's something.
Well, the Republican congressmen who have to run in districts where it's a close race are pretty upset because
Yeah, they're leading the way on
that
the
doesn't look
polls.
good.
Yeah, all right, we'll keep an eye on. There's a lot of stuff to keep an eye on. But again, market's definitely reacting to that better than expected PPI number. We'll see how that number gets, or I guess, trends out over the next several periods. Mike McKee, thanks so much for joining us, helping us understand what's going on out there. Mike McKee does all the economic stuff for Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, we're going to play something. We're going to play something from National Review talking about why Islam has a virulent anti-Semitism problem. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the heirloom barley. This has micronutrients. It's a high-density protein. You can't get this barley at a regular store. It's very special. It'll bring down inflammation, detoxify your body, and soak up free radicals. And when you do this regularly, your endocrine system, your immune system, your brain function, your cardiovascular system all improve. In addition, if you have, joint inflammation, this will help to reduce that. And this will help you to recover after a workout because you're bringing down that inflammation. You do this regularly, you're slowing down the aging process. Powerful stuff. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. All right, let's listen into National Review.
Yeah, you probably know these TD moves. Touchdown! But guess what? There's another TD.
We can be shocked and appalled, but we can't say we're necessarily surprised when two Muslim men carry out a horrific terror attack against Jews. Hey everyone, I'm Rich Lowry of National Review, and that kind of horrific attack we saw in Australia doesn't or shouldn't surprise us because Islam, or at least a fundamentalist interpretation of it, has a violence and a virulent anti-Semitism problem. I'm not saying all Muslims are violent. I'm not saying all Muslims are anti-Semitic. I'm not a Muslim, and I'm not an expert. But what I would like to point out is that the fundamentalist interpretation is inherently anti-Semitic and has millions of adherents around the world and has major religious authorities with a lot of credibility behind it. So to review this, let's start with one of the so-called sword verses in the Quran. Then, when the sacred months are drawn away, slay the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them and confine them, and lie in wait for them in every place of ambush. But if they repent and perform the prayer and pay the alms, then let them go their way. Now again, I'm not here to do exegesis. I'm not telling you what the correct or wrong interpretation of that verse is. But as the scholar Raymond Ibram points out with obvious historical accuracy, unlike the bellicose verses and anecdotes of the Old Testament, the sword verses became fundamental to Islam's subsequent relationship to both the people of the book, in other words, Jews and Christians, and the idolaters, in other words, Hindus, Buddhists, animists, etc., and in fact set off the Islamic conquest which changed the face of the world forever. Now, what we saw in the 7th century was a truly explosive Arab expansion, and subsequently one of the most sweeping acts of conquest and colonialism in world history. That aside, let's focus in on one of the aforementioned so-called people of the book, the Jews. And here, credit where it's due, I want to rely heavily on a report from the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. And I want to focus on the Muslim Brotherhood, one of the most influential Muslim movements of the last 100 years. This is not a fringe group. Tentacles all around the world, has changed the iteration of Islam as we know it, founded in 1924. Its founder, Hassan al-Banna, no fan of the Jews. Among other things, he said the Jews are strangers and usurpers who came to Palestine under the protection of the bayonets and cheating patronage of the British to a land which is not theirs. In 1938, true to form, the Brotherhood distributes Arabic translations of Mein Kampf and the Protocols of the Elders of Zion at a conference it organized. It allied with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who, among other greatest hits, said that Muslims should, quote, kill the Jews wherever you find them, end quote, since, quote, this pleases God, end quote. Then we get the period after World War II, when a chief ideologist for the Brotherhood is Syed Qutb. And guess what? He's not a fan of the Jews. He said the Jews are the blackest devil and the source of the worst anti-Islamic machinations. He wrote an essay called Our Struggle with the Jews, where he called out the Jews for their destructively egotistic character. He said with their spite and deceit, the Jews are still misleading this nation and distracting away from her Quran. He said the Jews' aim is clearly shown by the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This is a constant theme and this sort of advocacy. The Jews are behind materialism, animal sexuality, destruction of the family, and the dissolution of society. Nice, huh? Then we have the Muslim Brotherhood influencing the creation of the revolutionary regime in Iran. If we jump forward to 1979, that regime, by the way, publishes a Persian language version of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which becomes a bestseller, and Ayatollah Khomeini is not going to let anyone surpass him in terms of his suspicion and hatred of the Jews. He said that the anti-Islamic conspiracy of the Jews are aimed at damaging Islam and shaking its most important pillar. He also asserted that the Jews are aligning themselves with groups that are, quote, more satanic than themselves, close quote. Then let's jump ahead to 1988, the founding charter of Hamas, which is the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. And this thing, it really must be seen to believe. It reads like the worst possible transcript you can imagine from a Candace Owens podcast with an armed wing attached. It says that the Jews strive to amass great and substantive material wealth and use it to, quote, take control of the world media. They're responsible for the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution. Indeed, quote, most of the revolutions we heard or hear about. They founded, quote, secret societies such as the Freemasons, and can you believe it, Rotary clubs, and the Lions, yes, the Lions, and others in different parts of the world for the purpose of sabotaging societies. They started World War I, and yes, World War II. Indeed, quote, there's no war going on anywhere without having their finger in it. Now, Hamas will eventually go and clean up that charter in 2017, but the founding charter really shows you fundamentally where they are coming from, and all this goes to that terrible atrocity in Australia. A father-son terror squad shows up.
So let me get this straight.
Shoots.
So a lot of people that are aligned with Candace Owen or aligned with Nick Fuentes, literally aligned with the Islamic fascists. Just sit down and think about that for a second.
down and kills as many Jews as they can at a Hanukkah celebration because they hate Jews and they believe, unfortunately, with a lot of authorities they can point to, that they have religious and scriptural warrant for hating the Jews. This is an enormous problem, a huge cultural and civilizational problem for Islam, and we should frankly acknowledge it. I'm Rich Lowry, over and out.
Right now, anti-Semitism is louder than ever. But so am I. I'm not backing down, and neither should you. This year, we're fighting back.
The only way to save civilization is to fight. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the drops. They're structural nanosilver drops. They're very high quality. You can get them in blueberry, cherry flavor, also honey and lemon. Have some at work, have some at home. The moment you have a throat irritation, take them right away to mitigate the problem. You're going to need this for the winter season. Trust me. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right. We're going to go to Cash Jordan because we need an update on how the world is going to shit. Looters empty LA's Whole Foods.
Wreaking destruction in their own backyards. Look at this poor 7-Eleven. Yo, are they throwing the food out the front door? Get your food. Get your fucking. This is crazy. This is insane. Chips, soda. This is crazy. Look at this poor place.
Yeah, please, no.
Almost all of them Latino.
Oh,
I'll pay 1,000 to.
this is crazy. The store's gone. The poor cashier's beside himself.
Sorry. Please forgive me.
But before we look at some even wilder smash and grabs that reveal the sad state of many an American city and might have you questioning whether you should shop in person.
Those last two videos that he just showed were blacks doing this.
He says, you know that annoying safety glass that stops the law abiding from buying things? Well, obviously, people stealing don't care too much about that. Look at these folks.
Yeah, look at that.
Look, they're just going right in the glass.
This is at like a CVS. No, it's hard to tell if it's a grocery store or if it's a CVS. It looks like a CVS. All right, you can't see it on the screen here, but the thing is that blacks stealing looks like wine, and they can't pull up their pants. You see their underwear. Now, I don't understand why they can't pull up their pants. Why can't they steal a belt? They'll steal Nike shoes. Not only will they steal Nike shoes, they'll steal 10 pairs of Nike shoes, but they don't steal a belt to pull up their pants.
Let's all those glass bottles hit each other.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. They're just stealing everything. Look at that. They're just stealing.
Sometimes people don't want to steal. They just want to destroy a business like this poor McDonald's. With the manager just hid behind the counter.
And in this case, blacks.
Oh, this is mayhem. This is so crazy. I feel so bad for these folks. This is why you need to have bulletproof glass. If there's no police around, you need to secure this place. Look, they're go behind the counter, they're kicking at the donuts, or whatever that was in there.
This is a classic example where they think that the city is a jungle.
Are they even stealing? This is just destruction from what appear to be people who do not think there are consequences. Oh, they're trying to get into the registers. Is that the register? Hopefully there's a GPS on there and they find these people.
A bunch of animals. Just a bunch of animals. And this is why I keep on saying it's about God, country, and family. If you don't have that, you don't have virtue. This horse shit wouldn't happen if they had God, country, and family.
Throw away the key. This is just terrible. Are they gonna try to break into it outside? Oh, this is what happens in a no consequences environment. But this thing thinks she's too smart for the security guard.
Here we go, another pickpocket. You know? Look at this.
He knows. Shopping without paying. Here you go. Puppy. What's up, buddy? Chicago Bulls. What's up, bro? Yeah, come on, man. Come on, son. Oh. Where are you? The meters, right?
Roku's self-serve ads platform. It's easier than ever with Ads Manager. Sign up today.
Where are you? The meters, right? What? That's right? Look at this woman.
Get me off the camera.
Get me off the camera.
Get me off the camera. All right,
Then stop stealing. Oh! Put her in jail. Wow, look at the size of that thing. She can drink all that by herself. Hello, how are you? Can I get a service back? There you go. Just put it back. Hey, come on, man. These businesses. Better free, yeah. And they say that this is a victimless crime. This business is gonna close. It gets robbed so much. Hi, how are you?
Every single person here is black that did this. Going into the 7-Eleven and stealing. Because they feel that they're entitled to steal. Where's the God, country, and family ethos with these people? And then we have a representative from New York in Congress that's saying people are starving and that it's all Trump's fault because of inflation. If people keep on stealing from your store, you have to you're going to have increased costs for insurance. You're going to have you have to increase the prices to make up the loss of stock. When they come into your store and destroy it, it costs more money. So the average citizen that's law-abiding is going to have to pay more. These blacks are causing the inflation in some cases, like the higher cost of goods in a city if there's lots of crime. But if they're starving, then why are they so fat? How can that be?
Got the candies back? You back? Yeah. Oh, I like those.
Cookies,
good, but
candy bar.
I only like them if I pay for them. But it's not just 7-Eleven where things are getting wild. Look at this. We got customers gathered at Whole Foods. This is crazy. Wow. Right in the donut section, too.
Yes, you gotta steal the donuts, too. I mean, they never steal carrots. They never steal celery. It's always the cookies, the donuts, the soda. Or if you're from the Midwest, pop. No. Still think they need reparations? You still think they deserve it? I don't think so.
Go figure. No one, why is this, though? You know, I don't know if I blame the security guard. He probably doesn't get paid enough to interact with these aggressive customers. This is crazy. Look at this, it's destroying the store.
Look at that. That's the reason why, right there. Destroying property, destroying the stock. That's the reason why your prices are going up. Oh, what's wrong with the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not steal. Unless you're black, unless you're Latino. I'm pretty sure that's not what it says on the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. What is the issue with these people? Oh, they don't have God in their life. They'll say they go to church, but they'll go steal the donuts from Whole Foods.
$20.25. This isn't going to get filmed. You're not going to be internet famous. But what's truly awful is what this football team tried to get away with in Florida.
I want to compliment the Cocoa Tigers. They won the championship after finishing the season 15-0. It was the Atlantic Coast Youth Athletics Association.
Watch
now
this.
I want to introduce you to 8 of the thoroughbreds. And here they are.
These
you look at the thoroughbreds.
Terrible.
And you find out what were they doing.
Yeah, look at that. All of them black. All of them black. All 8 of them.
What were they doing on Saturday morning? Stealing. Well, let me tell you what they were doing. They Ubered from where they were staying. They had come from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, down to the Dick's Sporting Good in Posner Park. Not only did they Uber down there to shop, they had no intentions of paying for the product. So they came into the store in 2 groups, and they began to systematically steal product. And
this is the reason, if you're a store owner and you see this, or if you're a bystander and you're seeing this, you need to get engaged and you need to fight back. You need to beat the shit out of these kids because they have no discipline. None. And the moment you start fighting back, they will go away. You saw, in the 80s, this happened all the time in Detroit. But the only way to stop it was to fight back. But because we have, a world where we're afraid, we're all afraid now. Every single one of those kids needed to get their ass beat. Totally. They need their head kicked in.
They stole, and they stole,
on camera.
And they stole, and they stole, and they stole.
They took.
Yeah. How do you like that?
That's crazy.
This is everything that they stole.
Yeah.
And
they
guess
thought
what?
they were going to get away with it.
As we've said before, you can't go any place, anytime that you're not on a camera. So Dick's Sporting Goods.
Out of control black kids. No God, no country, no family.
Knows that they're stealing because they're watching the systematic, organized theft ring called a football team. Now, not only did they steal 47 items, not only did they steal 47 items, but ostensibly they may have cost their team the championship and the football game.
They were in jail?
Because
is that what happened?
I don't know if these all were starters or not, but I can tell you that we were finishers. We arrested them.
Wow.
We took them to the juvenile assessment center.
Sacks of shit. This is sacks of shit.
Laws and policies like that, where this 7-Eleven is.
Bullshit.
No, stop stealing.
Take it out, man. Yeah.
No, it's in the backpack.
What's it?
Don't do it again.
Don't do it again, man. Come here. Right here.
Thought you were gonna get away with it. This is so wrong, man. Oh! Oh, look, they're jeering at him.
Let's take it out. No, before I say that ugly.
I want that. Sorry. Oh, he was stealing. He was stealing.
Just throw it in your pocket.
Yup. Stand in front of the register, try to steal right in front of them. Think they're stupid.
Thank you.
It's not victim.
The worst freaking state to live in right now is New York, and nobody's talking about it. I've spent 30 years in the insurance industry.
I talk about it on every show.
It's not victimless. These businesses are going to shut down if they don't get in the faces of the people that are committing all this crime, which is dangerous. Just look at what happens here in Burlington. Oh, these customers are attacking customers.
You notice that it's always the black woman that's overweight that is the loudest while they're stealing.
This is crazy. Language, people, please. Look at these horrible photos. Over what? Oh, no, don't throw it. Okay, thank you. We'll stop it from throwing it. Don't throw stuff in the store. No. Terrible. Oh. This is crazy. Oh. Customer service. Oh, this is Kohl's. It wasn't Burlington, it was Kohl's. Customer service. They got.
If we don't solve this problem, we don't have a society. So instead of you blaming the Jews, instead of people saying, oh, it's all about, the Jews take over and all this, just look at this. Do you think a society is productive when you have this happening all the time? It's happening all the time in New York. All the time. It's happening all the time in Chicago. In LA. In many urban environments. Why? Why do black people feel, or Latinos feel, that they can steal? It's just not right. Some people are just born. It's like, well, wait a minute. That's just wrong to do. You're just like born with that feeling. And you have others that just like, they think it's okay. A part of the problem is that you have the intelligentsia and you have the non-intelligentsia dividing society as the oppressors and the oppressed. And so if you're a black person, you must be oppressed, and therefore you have the right to take. You have the right to take your shoes, 10 pairs, from Dick's Sporting Goods or Foot Locker. Meanwhile, don't get that belt to pull up your pants. Don't go to the library to learn something. Don't get a skill so you can have a better job and have a better future. No, go to Kohl's and steal.
Good job, man. This is crazy. The whole store's trash. But it gets even worse when you got these theft mobs that think they can escape CVS. Look, she's got a box fan. Oh, the door's locked. They can't get out. They're trapped. Oh. You don't have. Yeah. Is she gonna call the police?
Go ahead, call them.
She's gonna call the police on herself without realizing it. And the sad thing is, the person working there, doing the right thing, not living a life of crime, they're the one that loses their job when that store closes. But there's also a big problem with people robbing the post office. Look, they stole the mail. These guys just stole mail and packages, and now they're getting into a car.
Kohl's isn't good enough. Foot Locker is not good enough. CVS is not good enough. You got to go to the mail and steal that too.
that doesn't even have a license plate. Look at that.
It's that time of year when holiday cheer and gift cards
Sadly, it
often
is.
arrive in our mailboxes. Or do they? If you're wondering if someone wasn't as giving this year,
This is terrible.
here in Suffolk County, it may actually be this postal clerk who allegedly behaved like quite the Grinch.
Wow.
Shopping at TJ Maxx right after opening our mail on the job here at the Oakdale Post Office and allegedly stealing items of value from it. Items like gift
She went
cards and
shopping with the gift
scratch-offs,
card.
even
Oh,
foreign
well, who
cash.
was doing that? Black woman.
But she didn't know investigators were watching.
If you aren't paying attention,
Terrible.
if you are going to engage in this conduct, we're going to notice it.
The 35-year-old clerk, Giovanni Jameson Lewis of Massac
Wild.
Beach, now facing felony charges
Yeah.
for grand larceny and criminal possession of her allegedly stolen property.
Right.
It also cost her her job here at the post
Oh,
office,
yes, she's getting
where she
paid by the
worked for
government.
this past year, until a tip from the U.S. Postal Service Inspector General that a clerk had used a
Let me
stolen
get this
gift.
straight. She was working at the post office and they have a pension. They're subsidized by the government because I think the U.S. Postal Service is a quasi public-private, but I may be wrong on that. And she still had to steal? There's something wrong with society. If you don't have the ethics. Now, it goes back to what I was saying. John Locke, life, liberty, and property. When you do not have protection of your property, you don't have freedom. When you allow people to steal from you, you don't have freedom. You have to push back. You have to stop it.
Or here at TJ Maxx in her postal uniform.
Wow.
Again,
In
the
uniform.
investigation with the view of, was this a one-off or is this indicative given where she works?
And while the value wasn't staggering, at least not so far, they did uncover dozens of occasions in which envelopes were opened and the value inside went to Jameson Lewis.
Ooh.
Definitely naughty, say postal
She stole
customers who
people's
know
birthday
it.
money.
I mean, that's not fair. People work hard for their money and they're giving a gift to somebody
Right.
and then they take it. That's not fair.
No.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that someone who works at the post office would do that is just so disgusting.
You know that she got the idea to do it probably because she saw other people doing it and getting away with it. She's just the one that got caught.
Zach, they were after a very specific kind of
Pokemon thieves.
Yeah, these thieves getting away with well over $100,000 worth of real cards, and they were going after mainly Pokemon
That's
cards. You can
crazy.
see why some of these boxes going for hundreds of dollars, and some of these cards going for
It's like a
thousands.
collectibles place.
Within minutes, this
Wow.
organized trading card shop in Burbank became the target
Oh, look at
of
what it is.
thieves, quickly dumping boxes of collectible cards into
That's
bags
terrible.
and escaping into the night.
Total loss is many six figures.
Oh,
Where we could go in and out. 2 minutes.
and they destroy the
LA
store.
Sports Cards carries all kinds of collectibles, including sports memorabilia, but its main draw is buying, selling, and trading cards in bulk and individually, with a special focus on Pokemon cards.
This is our blood, sweat, toil, and
And
tears.
it's gone.
We've been shopping here for, I think, 2 years. But this is just like not even my full collection. I'm just creating a master set of Mega Evolutions.
This is
And
terrible.
it was the Pokemon cards like this collector's that the owner, Kit, says the thieves were looking
yeah?
for.
It was Pokemon. It wasn't One Piece. It wasn't Disney. It wasn't Magic. They went
Wow.
they're packed from 19.
They knew probably what was in the store
Yeah, they
because
scoped it.
there's a good chance the store has to put out what's inside on the internet, or the thieves went in without their masks
They
and acted
both-
like
they-
customers.
I think they
figured
scoped.
out what they were going to steal and then hit the place up at night.
29. Those packs are very expensive.
When my team pitched the idea, I thought it was impossible. A pan that's sears-like stainless, lasts like cast iron, and doesn't use toxic coatings. It is
Those packs are very expensive.
Crazy.
They took a lot of things from the back as well. A lot of sports cards they took. And that was locked
And
up.
insurance doesn't cover this
Those
stuff.
are really, really expensive.
In minutes, 2 suspects behind the counter were able to snag dozens of Pokemon TCG boxes, while the third went into the back and stole a locked box, which Kid says held even more.
Being a business owner is extremely difficult. Trying to get customers, trying to have repeat business, trying to provide a good product or service. It's very difficult to be a business owner. And you have people that go in and break into your business and steal from you. It's bullshit. People need to fight back.
Sports cards, including this rare 1 of 10 in the world Cristiano Ronaldo card, which Kit says is valued at over $100,000 alone.
One card.
Like a violation. This is like our home. Feels like someone went in our home, ransacked our things. It was personal to that level.
The suspects using a crowbar to break into the locked door.
That was all that stood between these criminals and hundreds of thousands of dollars in stolen goods. No police, no justice system that is going to take these people and lock them up and actually deliver.
Here's the reality of the situation. Like I said about physicians, they can't fix a problem. They can't fix your problem. They can treat your problem, but in most cases, they can't fix it. Now, if you have a broken leg, yeah, they can reset it. But if you have a disease, they can't usually fix it. They can treat it. Now, with the police, they can't fix this problem. They can report it, they can hunt them down, but it's not going to stop it. You have to have a society pushing back and saying, you're not going to do this, because if you walk out of the door, you're not going to be able to walk anymore. That's what vigilante justice does work, especially when you have an out of control society like this.
Criminals get so good at robbing a place like this because they're the looters from the videos we saw earlier. It's the same folks, they just graduated.
And power tools to get through a bolted metal gate.
Oh, power tools.
Systems that the store is already working on fixing and upgrading. As for the thieves, the store owners and customers hope the police can catch them all.
I do hope that they catch these guys, and I do hope that they didn't open the pack.
Yeah, well, that stuff's probably
and 100 geo boxes like these are pretty much untraceable. So it seems like these knew what they were looking for. Store owners here now working with other store owners that sell Pokemon cards and have been the target of recent burglaries just like this one.
Just like this one.
That the suspects may be the same in the 2 different cases.
Well, too bad they're wearing masks. We're never going to know unless they catch them or unless they try to sell that 6-figure card that they stole. That thing is like poison. These greedy criminals, they're going to want to get rid of that thing, and the second they do, eventually it'll make its way out in the open and there will be some sort of crackdown. Maybe. But look at this. It's not just trading card shops. Look at this. Over $1,000 worth of stuff stolen from this place in seconds. Look, they've got their masks.
See, in today's society, you see someone wearing a mask, especially if they're a certain ethnicity, maybe you should say, take off your fucking mask. You don't need it. Now they're trying to hide. And of course, black, overweight, but they got to steal because they're starving. When you're starving, you got to steal.
All covered up.
Got to get the liquor.
Well,
got to get the liquor.
Potentially identify some of these folks out on the street, but we'll see. Look, they're just stocking up. They don't care. No one's stopping them. And this is a $1,000 heist right here. Just taking stuff. Is anyone gonna try and stop them? This poor business. It's getting finished. Oh, she's going for the grand prize up there on the top. The gift box. Wow.
Radial fulfillment, 99.98% order accuracy. And with Radial Fast Track, you get no startup fees, no code freezes.
You know, when people come into your store and they got their own personal shopping bag and they're all covered up, that's been normalized. So these business owners, they have no idea who's a criminal until they take something and
see these bags, especially in New York. People have bags, you know, maybe a cloth bag. They'll bring them into the store, they'll put them in, and then go to the register, purchase the items, and put it back into the bag. And that way you're not using plastic or paper or anything like that. But what's happening is you have individuals that are taking advantage of that inculcation and just walking out of the store without paying. This is right here is the reason why. I mean, you think about the wisdom of the Ten Commandments. If those are followed, you have a pretty strong society. Just follow those 10 Commandments. You don't have to follow all the, you know, all the other stuff that's involved in the Bible. You follow just the 10 Commandments. And your society is so far ahead of reaching harmony. But when you start chipping away at those 10 Commandments, what will happen is your society will start to devolve. Here, right here.
not only walk around the store with it, but make a break for the front door. They're not a shoplifter until they try to leave. Isn't that crazy?
Over the counter and reaching into the open register.
Oh, that's so
grabbing
frightening.
handfuls of cash before running out of Banh Mi Pro Vietnamese sandwich shop.
So a Vietnamese sandwich shop, a black guy takes advantage of the cashier and steals the money out of the cashier, out of the cash register. Black guy.
Authorities say at least 12 robberies happened between October and November along Atlantic Avenue, including Flatbush Avenue and Fulton Street. Investigators believe this is the suspect behind each case.
There he is.
Have left business owners.
There he is. Welcome to New York. The big rotten apple.
He's on edge.
I get scared. I never suffer these kind of things.
Owner of Banh Mi Pro, Charlene Chong, says the thief's actions has shaken her sense of safety. She thought the restaurant near a city agency was safe, but now her staff is terrified.
Not in a sanctuary
especially the cashier who faced him directly.
The loss we myself to suffer by myself.
Detectives say the man often approached small businesses and individuals, mostly targeting female
This woman,
clerks,
that's the cashier, right? The cashier, she's really small. This guy's big. I mean, the body difference. I mean, I'll tell you. Society is going in the wrong direction. And this is the reason why I keep on saying there is a curse coming. There's a curse. God doesn't like seeing this shit. God states in the Ten Commandments, don't steal. Now, if you have a society that's full of theft, don't be surprised that something really bad happens. And I'm not talking about a cash register being ripped off or stock items being pillaged. I mean something really major. Like the total annihilation of a society.
In cash as registers were opened.
Wow.
He says in several instances, he threatened victims with a knife or appeared to have a weapon.
Wow.
Chong says with rent and salaries already hard to cover, the loss hurts her small business with no way to get it back.
Oh, but it's a victimless crime because, oh, they've got insurance. Yeah, right. You can't insure the cash in the cash register. And the idea that we need to decriminalize non-violent theft, like that right there, this guy gets caught, they're not going to...
I'll tell you, this is a case where you close down the store, you close the door, you turn off the lights, and you beat the shit out of the guy.
Charge him in New York with being a violent felon? No, because you know what? He didn't attack anybody. Oh, he just went for the money. Oh, he's just trying to support himself. He's just trying to eat. It's real expensive here. We got an affordability problem. That's how they let this kind of thing happen everywhere. And who suffers?
He said the repeat robber needs to face justice.
He must be
he won't.
put in the prison.
The Atlantic Avenue Business Improvement District says many women owners on Atlantic Avenue use a shared text thread to report suspicious activity.
He's probably got a long criminal record, too.
Connected with the Business Improvement District and police. We received this statement in our
And what they should have done, what the owner should have done, was have a bat, and you chase him down the street, and you beat the shit out of him. And then CNN will interview you. You know, what these owners need to do is work together. You know, you call them up and say, I just was robbed. The guy's running down the street, you know. And the owner, you know, one of the business owners down the street tries to corner him. There needs to be a coordination. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. They want you to be afraid. The way to stop this is to engage. The way to stop this is you run into the fire, not run away from the fire.
It did conduct a crime prevention strategy visit in partnership with Officer Ocean Wong from the 84th Precinct after this spate of incidents in shops this fall.
Terrible.
Meantime, the NYPD hopes someone recognizes the suspect. Anyone with information is urged to call Crime Stoppers.
They should check their past arrest records. You don't get up one day and say, gee, I'm either going to get in my car and put on a suit, get in my car and go to the office, or I'm going to go and do this. That's not the choice that this person was faced with in the morning. Oftentimes, these are individuals who've caused and committed so much crime that is their lifestyle now. That is their identity. They are not working a normal job. They didn't get up one day and decide to steal to feed their family. That's not what we're looking at.
A major bust in
But
Queens.
speaking of career criminals, listen to what's happening in New York.
Hey, before we go to Home Depot, because obviously they need the equipment from Home Depot when you're starving, please go to my store and get the vitamin D3. This will help to get cells to go into apoptosis if they're infected. Vitamin D3 is super important to get denser bone. It helps you to absorb calcium. And vitamin D3 is a gene expression cofactor, so your cells perform properly. You need this, especially during the winter season. Go to my store, get the vitamin D, take it every day. Olive leaf extract. It's dual purpose. It's going to bring down inflammation and help you with your lipid profile. By doing that, it's going to boost up your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. Clarity factor. It's a very powerful neurostack. It's going to get rid of brain fog. It's going to allow you to concentrate. And when you take this regularly, you're going to improve your neuroplasticity. You're going to have positive neuroplasticity. You're going to be thinking faster, and you're going to have better memory. Take it with filtered water. Take it every day. It's a great neurostack. Let's go back to the crime that's going on in our urban environments.
Depot products. 13
Depot,
people
2 million.
are accused of stealing more than $2.2 million worth of merchandise from 128 stores in 9 states. They allegedly stashed those stores.
$2.2 million, 128 stores in 9 states. Stolen products stored in Queens and the Bronx.
goods in Queens and the Bronx.
Take a look.
I wonder how long they were doing this for.
Thief is
Look at this
snatching
guy.
goods from a Brooklyn Home Depot shelf and concealing it in a garbage bin. Then, an apparent partner wheels the stolen items.
How he bought the garbage can.
It's part of a multi-million-dollar Queens-based
Wow, look at him go behind the
operation.
cabinet.
The governor and local leaders announced today they crushed.
Look at all the stuff they stole.
Was
Black guy.
amazingly coordinated, disciplined, meticulous,
Yeah, they're
and
professionals.
dedicated.
13
Right.
people have been
That was
charged
their
in a
job.
780-count indictment for stealing and fencing more than $2 million worth of
Look at
goods
this.
from Home Depots in New York and 8 other states. The suspects face grand
Wow.
larceny, conspiracy, and
Oh, that
criminal
trash
possession of
can
stolen
was
property
full.
charges. Police seizing these tools, building supplies, and home goods.
Look
Just
at
a
that.
fraction of what
Drills.
police say was stolen.
They got the whole
within
wall
13 months.
inventory right
Stolen
there.
products were sold in Queens,
The
the
whole
Bronx,
lineup.
and Brooklyn to fences at 50 to 70% of the retail value.
This Home Depot inspection was among those targeted. Investigators
Crazy.
said the theft crew would meet in East Elmhurst to prepare for the day's hits.
According to the indictment,
Wow.
the Diaz would decide on which items to be stolen by the Home Depots by checking their
So wait a minute. The Latinos are a part of it too.
inventory online, sometimes doing the same
Uh-huh.
Home Depot 4 times in one day. The crew stayed
4
connected
times in
on
one
active
day.
conference calls while they were in their heist.
According to authorities, sometimes a member of the crew,
Yeah.
as seen here, would provide a distraction so that thieves could
Oh,
leave
to
the store
distract the security.
undetected. The governor said
Oh,
this takedown
wow.
is support to stronger larceny laws that allowed investigators to combine incidents, turning cases from misdemeanors to felony.
And you see, that's the problem.
The felony.
And you see, that's the problem. Because we have so many misdemeanors going on here that people get to this level where they are more sophisticated than the security teams at the store. If we're going to have systems in these sanctuaries like New York and California that protect criminals until they're this good, we're going to just create criminal replacements for these guys. It doesn't matter that these guys are taken off the street. You think these guys are the end of the Home Depot theft going on in New York? Of course not. There's hundreds of people just like them out there getting to their level. It's frightening.
Well, now I'm going to talk about something that you ought not to do. You ought not to go into Walmart in Mulberry, Florida,
Yeah, that's right.
or any other place and steal stuff.
That's right.
But Homero Sains, who's 58 from Valrico, did over in Hillsborough.
Oh, yeah? What was he
That's where
stealing?
lives. So why did he come to Polk County? Well, he obviously only has 3 brain cells because he'd already been arrested over there for a stolen vehicle and all kinds of theft. So I guess he thought he'd get out of the
Career
neighborhood.
criminal.
Well, he came to Walmart and started stealing stuff and sticking it in his shirt.
Oh, yeah?
And then he put other stuff in his basket. And then he decided to go right past all the point of sale. And the Walmart people said, stop, wherever you are. You cannot steal from Walmart. Well, our deputy arrived.
Oh, yeah?
And he starts running.
Oh.
We try to tase him.
Oh.
He starts fighting with our deputy,
Wow.
trying to grab the taser. Finally, we tased him successfully.
So he's a violent criminal.
And he stops. When we arrested him, we found he had a white girdle band on under his
Oh, to
shirt
keep all the goods
and
tucked
had
in?
$237 worth of items in that girdle band.
From Walmart.
Think about that for a minute.
It's a lot. It's like half the
Professional
store.
thief? I think so.
Yeah.
New acquired job? Inmate at the county jail.
Oh, and you see, that's the message that you have to send to criminals. If you tell criminals it's okay to steal by never bringing any consequences to the table, that's what they're going to keep on doing. I am so sick of all this theft. And you know what? Until these places build jails and start handing out jumpsuits, this stuff's going to keep happening. What do you think about that? Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.
The society needs to push back. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This collagen is very high quality. It's going to help with your skin, your nails, your hair, your joints, your cartilage, your musculature, and your bone density. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. Also, get the Goodnight formula. This has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. So you get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. When you do that regularly, you're going to be detoxifying your central nervous system. You're going to be consolidating memory, and you're going to be well rested. By doing this regularly, you're going to improve your brain function and slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Some of it's entertaining, but there's a seriousness to this. Our society is devolving because we allow criminals to steal. All right, let's listen into Bloomberg here.
During the microphone at times, cranking through the copy, you barely heard a breath. Clearly trying to display high energy in a room that had no audience. And so we've been spending the last couple of hours dissecting not just the language, but the optics of what Americans were treated to last evening. We're going to have more on this a little bit later on with our political panel. But let's go to the White House right now, where they're still recovering from the big speech. Tyler Kendall is on the North Lawn on a chilly day in Washington, our Washington correspondent. Tyler, the White House thinks this was a slam dunk, to be clear, right?
Right, Joe, and I think we should also say that we should offer Paul Sweeney a defense there, because you did encapsulate exactly what we heard from President Trump. He really did blame his predecessor, which is something that we often hear from this White House, which is interesting because we know the administration was trying to use this platform to frame its messaging, because it may seem like we're far away from next November, but we are about to kick off into the new year and head into midterm season. But you're right, we heard from officials out this morning really praising this speech, and President Trump really used it to tout his policies from the last year and try to reassure Americans when it comes to the economy. I will say, though, we should point out that we also did hear from him that some of these policies that he's implemented this past year are going to take time to work their way through the economy, an argument often heard by his officials, like the Vice President J.D. Vance, who has urged patience, right? President Trump saying that the U.S. is poised for an economic boom next year, that some of those tax incentives in the One Big Beautiful Bill will come into fruition next year, that there will be a new Fed chair next year, and sort of pointing us forward. In terms of actual policy, we can get into, he of course hit on a lot of topics, but perhaps the most tangible new one is in announcing, as you heard, those warrior dividend checks that they're being called. These are payments to U.S. service members. He says are being funded by tariff revenue. They're already in the mail. He says they'll come in time for the holiday season by the end of the year. Joe, we should point out there are reports that this money was previously allocated and appropriated under the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's important when we're talking about some of the other initiatives that were floated, like tariff refund checks for the rest of Americans. That would need Congress to do separate appropriation if that was going to come to fruition.
Fascinating. Tyler, sounds like something's going on there in Lafayette Square. Is somebody on a loudspeaker? Are they trying to get on the air with you? What's happening?
I mean, maybe. It is actually a beautiful day here. The chill isn't that cold, and it's absolutely packed in front of the White House. There is a protester, a little bit muffled. Okay. I can't quite tell you what he is protesting.
No, that's fine. Well, I just, people wonder what the heck. You sound like you're at an airport. I thought maybe it might be the construction site. But Tyler, thank you. We'll get that. Listen to that. It's wild over there. Producer James and I will have to go check this out after the program. I want to stick with this for now because we're delighted to have Michael McKee with us, and we're going to look at the CPI report. And we only have a couple of minutes to do this, but I need to get Michael's take on the speech last evening. He said a lot, Michael McKee. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey, he said, was down 33% compared to the Biden Thanksgiving last year. Eggs down 82%. Everything else is falling rapidly. Is that true?
No, but you wouldn't necessarily expect it to be true. I would point people to the fact checks in the major newspapers and other things today that have quite a long list of things that he exaggerated or lied about. But that's kind of par for the course. I think the most interesting thing is what Tyler was just talking about, and that's the payments to service members. That money was already appropriated as housing money for that they would have gotten anyway. So it's sort of like somebody walks into your house sees the presents under the tree, picks one up and gives it to you and says, "Oh, here."
Interesting. 1776. The checks are going up. So we got CPI today, and I know that it's incomplete. So some people are calling this garbage. The White House is embracing it, I'm sure, because it came in a little bit better than expected. Can you take us inside the report here, Michael? Because it's one of these deals where the headlines are pretty great, actually, but we're seeing a lot of prices skyrocket as well, especially with food. Beef prices soaring here, coffee prices up 20%, banana prices up 7%. There are a lot of goods in the report that are being touched by tariffs. How do you look at this as a larger picture?
Well, it's kind of something you have to look through or look beyond. I could say I inherited this mess from Tyler Kendall, but it's basically because of the government shutdown.
Meanwhile, they're talking about the increase in grocery prices, but the core CPI only went up to 2.6%. It was estimated to be at 3%. Core PCI is not that bad. Now, with headline CPI, it's at 2.7%. Now, what's the difference between headline and core? Core doesn't have food and energy. So if you subtract the two, the energy and food only contributed to the headline number by 0.1%. So something doesn't make sense here.
Data in October at all, and there was very little data in November. They had to go back and reconstruct it and find stuff. And so when you open the report, it's almost all blank spaces. And what they did was calculate the change from September to November, the end of November, on a year-over-year basis for things. So that's why we got the drop there in the headline and the core. But there's some statistical anomalies in there that are really bothering a lot of the economists. And the biggest one is for housing, which is the biggest component in the CPI. They assumed, it appears, that there was zero housing inflation in October, which, according to those who spend their lives buried in spreadsheets, would be impossible. It just would not have happened. And so at this point, there's a lot of questions about exactly what this is telling us. And I think we have to kind of wait till we get the December numbers, which will be a complete month. We get those January 13th to get a much better picture of inflation.
Well, so in our remaining moment or so here, is the conventional wisdom on point that this guarantees a cut in January?
That's the funny thing. Everybody's looking at the stock market and saying, the markets are overjoyed and planning on continual lower rates from the Fed. But when you look at the Fed funds futures, they're only pricing in a 25% chance of a January cut. That's up from like about 20% before this number. So it doesn't look like the people who are putting money on this are convinced yet.
Interesting. That meeting is going to be really something. It's the final week of the month, right? What data will we have between now and then? It'll help fill in the blanks.
Oh, we'll have a lot. We'll get the third quarter GDP, which we have not had yet, and we'll get PCE numbers updated, but also we'll have a new jobs report, new CPI, new PPI, and retail sales numbers. We'll have an idea of what the holiday shopping season was like. So the Fed will have a much clearer picture for the January 28th meeting.
Good to see you, Michael. You did a good job with that mess that you inherited, and I appreciate the time and the effort here. Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent. I don't know. I say we dug out of the hole. We are making this network better than ever before and faster. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. Jamie Tarabay is coming in next with her great scoop on what's happening at the Pentagon. They're reaching out to private cyber companies to help play offense. We'll have that story next, only here on Bloomberg.
All right. Let's dive in to the U.S. jobless claims data here in the CPI. So let's push it in here.
There is a lot of error in this report, so I would not take much away from this. The key thing that there's an issue with, in the sense that when they're sampling the data specifically around November, that the survey period was condensed into later in the month when you typically have significant holiday discounting. And when we spoke with BLS, they said they're not doing anything to adjust those seasonals. So that automatically makes the data artificially weak, and we're probably going to see a bounce back in December.
Is there a trend we can take away from here that, boy, it's at least inflation is not going up from here? Is that a fair takeaway? Maybe it's not cooling as much as these numbers might suggest, but doesn't it appear to be rising?
I think that's entirely fair.
Okay.
That there was this concern that around the holiday season, companies wouldn't really do the typical discounting that they usually do because of the tariffs. That doesn't appear to be the case. And we knew this heading into the data print because if you looked at a number of different indicators that survey the companies ahead of this holiday season, it showed a normal holiday discounting year. So it doesn't appear like there was this lapse in discounting just because of tariffs. In fact, it was a typical year for discounting. And then on top of that, you have some of the issues within the data because of the government shutdown.
So Myron's been out here, Governor Myron, we got lower rates, a whole bunch of other people. There's been a clear tendency within Bloomberg's surveillance of people looking at a disinflationary tendency. Is it a January tendency or is it a Fed meeting waiting out midsummer?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we'll see is inflation will bounce back in the next couple of prints. The economy will start to pick up again, in which case the Fed's probably going to be on hold for much of the beginning of next year.
So again, so the Fed, I mean, if you look at, so you don't think the Fed's going to look at these numbers and say, we've got inflation?
I sure hope not.
You sure hope not, because you think the data in the next couple of months could in fact show a little bit more inflation in the economy.
Yeah, and we know that there was an issue. I mean, they didn't even collect the October CPI for the most part. We know that there are issues with the data.
Yeah.
So to form a strong conclusion about this print in particular as being some massive disinflationary period, I think is entirely inaccurate.
Stephanie Roth with us with Wolf Research, and we continue here. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene with Lisa Mateo and John Tucker. Good morning across the nation. Sirius XM, Channel 121. Good morning, Canada. I mentioned David Rosenberg up in Toronto with a disinflationary call. Nailed that into this report. On YouTube, subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast. We're thrilled to finish 2025 strong, humbled by the signups there each and every day at Bloomberg Podcast. Paul Sweeney with Stephanie Roth.
All right, so we've got an inflation environment that's at least okay at this point. How about the labor market? What did you take away from some of the labor data earlier?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what we're seeing is a labor market that's holding up a lot better, and in fact starting to inflect a bit higher from here. And I think that's the main conclusion that we should take away from the headline jobs numbers. Let me replace it, the private payrolls numbers. The headline jobs numbers are impacted again by not necessarily the government shutdown in particular, but the deferred resignation program, which ended at the end of September. These were people who took severance packages. This is not people who lost their jobs. So if you look at the private payroll numbers, they were actually quite decent. Now we're looking at a trend that's posted in the 70,000 range, which is really not bad. And the fact the unemployment rate rose is less of a concern, I think, partially because there was again some issues with the government shutdown impacting the data. And in today's inflation data, the airlines were a big driver of the weakness, and that there was also canceled flights. There was just a lot going on
So your first look at the noise is the airlines.
First look at the noise is the airlines. They fell 6.5% over 2 months, so it comes out to about 3% each month.
Right.
If you look at the core number was 0.159 across both months. That's quite low. Apparel was pretty weak. That is probably tied to this whole holiday discounting issue. Right. So there's a lot of sort of noise within the report, in part tied to the government shutdown, in part tied to the fact that it's just a sort of less inflationary backdrop.
Stephanie Roth drives the market higher. Futures up 40 now at 47. NASDAQ up 1.3%. The NASDAQ 100, I should say, the VIX 16.83. I look at this stuff. I look at the whole ballet of it all. And I am more than certain, I learned this from David Rosenberg at Merrill years ago, Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner, and Smith. I saw an article that is just Merrill. I said, it will never just be Merrill.
Yeah.
You just mentioned it. Pros like you look at each line item. What do the service sector line items say and the angst of affordability and purchasing power, utility bills, medical bills, auto insurance.
Yeah.
Can you see those in the report?
Yeah, we can see that in the report. Motor vehicle insurance looks pretty flat. Transportation services, lodging, all that stuff was pretty soft. It's hard to know to what extent this is government shutdown related. My sense is it probably is, and we'll see a bit of a bounce back. And then on the good side, that was all pretty soft outside of maybe some used vehicles.
Ted Pick, what do you think?
Who should it be, or who do I think it will be?
Both. We have time for both answers.
I would love to see Waller. I think he'd be a great pick, and I think markets would really prefer to see Waller. Who I think is more likely? It's probably more likely to be Hassett. Although it does seem like incrementally over the past couple of weeks, there seems to be some more concerns about Hassett, or at least more hesitation out of the White House for picking him.
All right, we're going to go to Michael Knowles talking about DEI. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the products, get healthy. When you're healthy, you'll be more productive and have a better life, more vitality. Gladiator barley will help to build muscle. It also will bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, and detoxify your body. When you do that, you're improving your immune system and your endocrine system. You're recovering quicker after a workout. And by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, your brain will work better. So take it every day. This is a month's supply. And Myotrol. Myotrol will help to build muscle. It'll help with the gene expression that you need to build muscle and maintain muscle. When you turn 40 years of age, you start to have a problem gaining and maintaining muscle mass for males and for females. So take this. This has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. It also helps with the health of your mitochondria, so you have the energy to maintain that muscle. And by doing this on a regular basis, you're going to have the musculature that you need to have vitality. You can take it separately, but it works even better when you stack it with Gladiator barley. All right? Myotrol also is great if you're an athlete, younger or older, to build muscle and to strengthen for your sport. So please go to my store, get the Gladiator barley and the Myotrol. It's a great stack to build muscle and to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, and detoxify your body. All right. Let's listen in to Michael Knowles.
We're going to say this by Jacob Savage called The Lost Generation. Very, very lengthy. Obviously, I'm not going to read it all, but you should check it out in Compact Magazine. Compact Magazine, which is this interesting magazine. It's established by people who are kind of on the right, but also there's some communists involved in it. And it's not 1980s Republican orthodoxy economics. It tends a little bit more toward left-wing economics, but is much more favorable toward right-wing social policy. There's this joke, I don't know if you remember this, I think it was Parks and Recreation, or maybe it was 30 Rock. One of the jokes, though, was, it said, oh, hi, it was 30 Rock. It said, I'm a fiscal liberal, but a social conservative. And this was the kind of loser character, the character that everyone was supposed to hate. I'm a fiscal liberal, but a social conservative. And that was a joke because at the time, 15 years ago now, the really fashionable political identity to hold was to be a fiscal conservative, but a social liberal. I'm a fiscal conservative, but I'm a social liberal. And this actually represented a vanishingly small number of real voters, but people who were in elite positions, especially in the cities, they identified that way, so it was overpronounced in the popular culture. Very few people identified with that. Well, I guess Compact Magazine's position is that view. It's the fiscal liberal social conservative. And they write really interesting stuff. So anyway, what's the takeaway? Takeaway is that DEI destroyed millennial men. DEI policies destroyed millennial men. It opens up with this talk about Hollywood and how if you were a white man in Hollywood, especially a young white man, a millennial white man, trying to get a job in Hollywood 10, 15 years ago, it was basically impossible. And I can kind of attest to this because I was there at the time. I was doing other stuff too, and Daily Wire was just starting at the time. But I remember it. I had a lot of friends who were trying to do it. Actors, writers, directors,
people who were trying to break in specifically to that industry, if you were a white guy, it was told to you openly, yeah, it's not going to happen because they have to diversify. There are these DEI requirements, and isn't that wonderful? White guys still occupied a ton of major positions in Hollywood, but it was the older white guys, the guys who had already established their careers before. For the younger white guys, it wasn't happening. So that's how the article opens, but it doesn't just focus on Hollywood. It talks about journalism, academia, medicine, tech, all of these industries where, starting about 15 years ago, if you were a white guy trying to break in, you were going to have a lot of trouble. Just a few words from the article. As the Trump administration takes a chainsaw to diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's a tendency to portray DEI as a series of well-meaning but ineffectual HR modules. Quote, undoubtedly, there has been a ham-fisted DEI programming that is intrusive or even alienating, explained Kianga Yamada-Taylor in The New Yorker. But for the most part, it is a relatively benign practice meant to increase diversity while also sending a message that workplaces should be fair and open to everyone. Jacob Savage in Compact goes on. This may be how Boomer and Gen X white men experienced DEI, but for white male millennials, DEI wasn't a gentle rebalancing. It was a profound shift in how power and prestige were distributed. Yet practically none of the thousands of articles and think pieces about diversity have considered the issue by cohort. They think about it by man, white man, brown man, yellow man, whatever, but they don't look at it by age cohort. And the boomers and the Gen X, they basically skated by with DEI. It was the millennials and to some degree the older Zoomers who got pounded. This is not a story about all white men. It's a story about white male millennials in professional America, about those who stayed and who mostly stayed quiet. The same identity a decade apart meant entirely different professional fates. If you were 40 in 2014, born in 1970.
This is a camera lucida, and throughout the 19th century, it was an indispensable drawing aid for artists and technical illustrators alike. And yet,
in 2014, born in 1974, beginning your career in the late 90s, you were already established. If you were 30 in 2014, you hit the wall because the mandates to diversify didn't fall on older white men who in many cases still wield enormous power. They landed on us. So it opens up with this anecdote about Hollywood, which I saw it among my friends, I saw it among colleagues, so that was real. But it goes on. It says in journalism, eventually white men stopped even trying to enter into journalism because they were shut out of the jobs. And then journalism became even more effeminate. Journalism became a lot more liberal. Journalism changed. Not hiring these people, discriminating against this specific group, this sex group, racial group, and age group. Not only did it push them out of their careers, it changed the industry. It had this twofold effect. Right now, go to getkickoff.com/Knowles. The holidays they're actually all about God because they're holy days. And then after that, they're about friends, they're about family. But then after that, what's it all? It's about you can continue with transparent plans starting at $5 a month. So when you go to getkickoff.com/Knowles today, that is kick.
It passed his
drop in barely over a decade. That's a third of the people. So it's really a 33% drop, 10 percentage point drop in barely over a decade. And this is the clearest example we have of the celebration paradox. Mike Anton's point that you can observe the same phenomenon, but if you observe the phenomenon and say it's a good thing, then you're feted and you're applauded and you're patted on the back. If you observe that very same phenomenon and say it's a bad thing, you're called a dangerous conspiracy theorist spreading misinformation. This is the clearest example of it because we were told, my group, I know I'm a little dusky because I'm part Sicilian, but my group, I think broadly speaking, I'm a white man. My group of people was told, hey, we're going to diversify, and this is really, really good. And most of the white men, across party lines, across geographic lines, most of the white men said, oh, okay. They said, that's great, wonderful, how great. Or if they said, well, we're being discriminated against, they mostly kept quiet at least. And the consequence of that was you had at least a decade of active, explicit, overt, legally protected, culturally celebrated discrimination against a very particular group of people, not even just white men, millennial white men and older Zoomer white men. And now all the think pieces decry the rise of identity politics on the right and among white people. What did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen? There's a Pew report that came out some years ago that showed that white people are the only group that doesn't have a racial identity. Showed greater than 50% racial identity, people who said that race was important or very important to their sense of identity. Greater than 50% among Asians, Hispanics, and black people. Among black people, it's over 70%. Do you know what it was for white people? 15. White people have no sense of racial identity. And generally, white people say, isn't that a good thing? We shouldn't have too much of a sense of racial identity. We should. However, when your country experiences the largest demographic change ever of any place in the history of the world over the course of 60 years since the Hart-Celler Act, and when that change is intentional, when that change is being targeted at you explicitly, saying we want fewer white people and we don't want you to have jobs and we don't want you to have a career and you're going to be ostracized from society, don't be surprised when you get a little alienation. Don't be surprised when people feel a little isolated from their culture, deracinated, feel as if they don't really have a stake in the society. It comes from somewhere, and there's this response from the left which says, yeah, take that, white man, you're the devil, we hate you, you're terrible, you should feel terrible about yourself on the basis of your sex and your race and your age, I guess. But then the response on the right is, oh, quit your belly aching, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, we're all individuals, aren't we? And this group of people is saying, well, hold on, we're not being treated as individuals. We're not, so that just isn't true. And we can't exactly pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We can learn how to suffer in a way that is sanctifying, that is good. We can learn how to make the best of a bad situation. We can learn how to play the hand we're dealt. We absolutely have to do that. But this requires a political solution. You've got to stop actively discriminating against this one particular group of people, young white guys, on every level. In your immigration policies, in your hiring policies, in your university admission policies. And we're beginning to see that. This is one of the achievements of the Trump administration that has gone largely under the radar, is the Supreme Court ended affirmative action in college admissions. Now the schools are going to try to get around that anyway, but that was a big shift. The Trump administration has deported a ton of people, over 2 million people. They're not getting any credit for that, and they're being lied about actually by some of their critics on the left and the right. So there are, but this requires political solutions, okay? I think the age of squishy, individualist, liberal slogans is over because it has failed. And it's led to deeply unjust discrimination. And when people recognize that, we shouldn't tell them they're not seeing what their eyes are seeing and not to believe their lying eyes. Just Rick Clip. Stop. Ring the bell. Subscribe. See you next time.
All righty. Let's see what's going on with... All right. Let's play MS Now's take on Trump's speech last night.
Spam in a taco. Pork for more. Sizzle pork and
Let's go to MS Now reporter Laura Lopez at the White House. Also with us, University of Michigan economics and public policy professor Justin Wolfers. Laura, how's the White House reacting to this new inflation report, and what was the goal of last night's speech?
Well, the White House is praising this new inflation report, claiming that essentially it says what the president was trying to argue to the American people last night in his address. And so we have a post from Caroline Leavitt that I want to show you, what the White House press secretary that she just made this morning, essentially saying that just as President Trump told Americans last night, inflation continues to fall and wages continue to rise. Now, of course, inflation is not necessarily falling, and not falling as rapidly as the president and his White House have claimed. And in addition to that, the president claimed last night that inflation is stopped. It's not stopped. Based on the most recent rate reports. And again, this argument that the president made to the American people, trying to also claim that prices across the board are rapidly falling, is also not true, Anna, as you know and you've laid out previously, because the Consumer Price Index actually shows that there are far more prices of goods across the board that have increased during the president's first year in office than have actually fallen.
Just in this November data, price is up 2.7% compared to a year ago. We don't have a monthly change because of the government shutdown, so no data month to month. But what does this new number tell us about the health of the economy?
It's very good news with a very big asterisk. This was a lower inflation report than people had expected. That's the good news, which is maybe inflation is coming down. It had been forecast to be a little higher than this. But still, this is 2.7% inflation. So the president's claims that prices are falling is nonsense. The president's claim that he stopped inflation is also nonsense. Inflation, in fact, remains above the Fed's target. So even though this is better news than we expected, it still is a little problematic. But the real issue here is these were data collected in the middle of the government shutdown. And economists, and in fact, the Bureau of Labor Statistics have said this is not very reliable. We just didn't collect as many prices as we normally do. There's changes in the methodology as a result. And that's why, yes, there's a lot of talk in Washington about this being good news. But if you go to Wall Street, actually, there's been a very muted reaction. It would be good news if there weren't a honking big asterisk next to it.
I want to do just a quick run through of some of the president's claims and have you provide additional context or set the record straight, because you point out there's a lot of nonsense we've heard, just doesn't match with reality. First, let's talk about grocery and gas prices and listen to what the president said about that.
The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we're solving that too. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon.
Justin, is he using rose-colored glasses? What are the facts?
This is just a greatest hits of his favorite lies. So he hasn't stopped inflation, as we just discussed. That's 2.7%. He hasn't caused grocery prices to fall. In fact, they're falling at around about 2.5 or 3%. Right? Sorry, they're rising.
Here's the problem with this guy. All right, the Federal Reserve target is 2% plus or minus a few tenths of a point. All right. Like plus or minus 0.5. So 2% is the target. But if it's 2.5, it's pretty close to the target. This is running at 2.7 or 2.6, depending on if you look at core inflation, CPI core, or headline. So it's close to the target. Now, yes, the methodology, the shutdown of the government, maybe the data isn't as good as it should be. All right, we'll see. We'll see in next month what happens. All right. But it's close to what has been published is close to the target from the Federal Reserve. For him to say there's no inflation, he's basically saying he would basically say that CPI is at zero. Well, if you're at zero CPI, you got a depression. All right. So what Trump is saying is that there's no inflation, comma, because it's at the Federal Reserve upper bound part of the target. Now, Trump doesn't speak that way. He speaks in hyperbole, but that's what he meant. He's a professor. He knows better. He should have said that. He doesn't, because he wants to put Trump always as a bad guy. Now, the reality of the situation is that, yes, you could have some goods that are more expensive compared to prior periods and others less expensive. But if you look at the aggregate, it is going down. In August and September, it was projected that we would have an annualized CPI headline of 3.1%. It came in at 2.7. Even if there's a data collection problem, it might go up to 2.8 or 2.9. It's still going to be better than what was projected in August and September. So inflation rate is going down. That's what Trump should have said. Instead, I think he said that the prices are going down. No, it's the inflation rate is going down. But if prices actually if absolute price went down compared to prior periods, you would actually be in deflation. Now, some people would like to hear that. Oh, we want deflation. The reality of the situation is if you have deflation, your home prices go down. Your income level goes down. The contracts that are being renewed by unions go down. Your compensation goes down in a deflationary economy. Remember the Great Depression? The reason why they say depression is because it was deflationary. You don't want deflation. You want a controlled 2% plus or minus 0.4, 0.5 to control that. If we were in negative, you got a big problem. You're talking Lehman. So people need to pay attention to this. So prices are never going to go down because if prices went down, you have a depression. If that CPI came in and it was going to be a negative rate, you got a big problem. If it was close to zero, you got a big problem. Why doesn't he say this? Oh, Orange Man, bad always. That's why. Trump, not, being precise in his wording, the rate of inflation is going down. And it's within the upper bound of the target of the Federal Reserve. If that is going to be the gold standard, then you don't really have inflation because that's what's programmed in. That's what the goal is, to prevent a depression. Why doesn't he say this? He's a professor at UMich, University of Michigan, in economics.
Grocery prices are rising 2.5% to 3%, as everyone at home knows, because we actually go into the grocery store. Gas prices haven't fallen.
Exactly. But the reality of the situation, if it wasn't, you would have a problem. Because if prices were going down, that means you're stressing the farmers. How are they going to pay their loan to the bank? I would like him to explain why a radical price difference going down on groceries is good for the overall economy. Because it's not. And not only that, maybe he should start using my anti-aging protocol so he's not losing his hair.
Many states, it's $1.99. In fact, in 1,000 gas stations across the country, it might be $1.99. But at the other 999 out of every 1,000 gas stations, it's well above that. That's actually literally precise data.
Okay, today it's at 290. 1 month ago it was at 3.01. So it's going down. 1 week ago it was at 294. 1 year ago, 303. It's lower. Now, I trade energy markets regularly. And the barrel of oil right now, as we speak, is trading with a 56 handle. You keep on having a trade below that, you're going to have those energy producers slowly turning the spigot down to burn off the inventory, and then the price of oil is going to start going back up. But right now, you have low energy. You have low energy, all right? It's not at $4 a gallon. And then the question is this taking out state taxes? Because certain states actually tax gasoline? Is this with or without the state tax? I don't know. But energy for oil has been staying at in the 50 range. It can't stay there forever. The producers are gonna shut off the spigot. So you got a sweet spot here. Anything that's any gasoline in most stations that are trading that's priced at around $2.80 to $3.10, you're doing pretty damn good. I mean, when we started having over $4 a gallon in Michigan, right before Lehman crash, all right, what was starting to happen is people stopped spending, right? Because it costs a lot to fill your tank of gas. This was in 2007, 2006, before Lehman crashed, all right? That was $4 a gallon. $4 a gallon in 2006. Now add in inflation. When you do an inflation adjust from 2006 to now of a $4 a gallon, you're well below that. No one's paying attention to that part of the equation either. But he's a professor from University of Michigan. Not telling you the full story here. Price adjust, $4 a gallon from 2006 to, we'll do it real time, because, we love doing real time stuff, right? All right, for $4 a gallon, $4 in 2006, price it in 2025 per inflation. So if you adjust a $4 that was going on in Michigan in 2006, it would be trading at $6.41. Now you can just do that as an average, all right? Because it's not a high density area, but there's lots of cars, So, but the point here is that anything below $5 on the average in the United States, you're doing a pretty damn good job. When you do it in an inflation adjusted number. He's an economist. He should have said that. And that's the reason why energy is low. It stayed low because we produced a lot of it. Yeah, but DrPaulCottrell, it's still at $3 a gallon. And I remember it was $3 a gallon in the early 2000s. Yeah. What about inflation, dude? Oh, that should have been $6.50. Yeah, is it $6.50? No. See? Why is people so stupid?
Later on in the speech, he told us that drug prices would fall 400%. The problem is, if they fell 100%, they'd be free. So he's talking about violating the laws of economics. And he also forgot to talk about what's going to happen to healthcare prices.
I want to rewind. I want to understand the.
Later on in the speech, he told us that drug prices would fall 400%. The problem is, if they fell 100%, they'd be free. So he's talking about violating the laws of economics. And he also forgot to talk about what's going to happen to healthcare prices. He's not talking about that because they might be about to double if Congress doesn't do something soon.
I don't know.
He did talk about how much money people are making. Here's what he said about wages.
Under Biden, Real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal, is $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation.
Justin, is any of that accurate?
It's very hard for me to figure out exactly what numbers they are in real time right now, but none of those magnitudes seem like they make any sense, and I've not seen anyone who's been able to replicate any of them. The president has a habit of making up statistics. What is true is that wages have been growing a little faster than prices, but they've been doing that for a long time now. The harder thing for folks at home is they're not rising at the sort of levels that you would really hope for in a time like this. It's interesting, this was the only point at which the president spoke about the labor market. What he didn't do is mention the fact that we've had literally no job growth since April, since the Liberation Day tariffs. He didn't mention the fact that unemployment has risen from 4% to 4.6% through this second term. And he didn't mention that that's the sort of change that would normally lead.
I thought it was 4.7%, but all right. I'm pretty sure it's 4.7.
We'll start to wonder, are we in a recession?
All righty, let's listen to Ratner.
In HR, you need something more than doable. You need something powerful. You need adaptable, scalable.
Former Treasury official. Before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This will target multiple systems. Help with brain function, help with your cardiovascular health, help with musculature, rev up your energy levels and your metabolism, help with controlling A1C levels. And if you take this every day, you are going to slow down the aging process, boost up your immune system and your endocrine system. Very important. Once you start taking this, within 72 hours, you're going to start feeling the effects. What you'll notice is that you'll have lots more energy. It's a steady burn of energy throughout the day. You'll be able to sleep better. You'll be able to concentrate better. And if you take this over a long period of time, day after day, week after week, month after month, you're actually slowing down the aging process. It's a very powerful. You can stack it with Gladiator barley or heirloom barley, or stack it with the protocol that I have. That protocol is the following: multivitamin and the probiotic are the base. It's the foundation. Then the first pillar of the protocol, max 35 or cleanse to boost up your immune system. C60 is the second pillar to soak up free radicals. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up your immune system and to help with your cardiovascular system. And Boomer Boost to rev up your metabolism and increase your energy. And if you pay attention to that protocol that I just mentioned, you are targeting everything that makes you age. And that is the reason why it works. And there is nobody out there that is more comprehensive or more accurate in terms of anti-aging than I am. And I just gave you the recipe. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost. I'm 100% sure on this.
Morning, Joe, economic analyst Steve Ratner. Steve, good morning. We've got your charts in just a moment, but first, you were watching the speech last night along with us, and you had a couple of more fact checks.
Yeah, look, I think you guys did a great job on the fact checking. Things like his inability to do percentages, no matter how many times we point out to him, you can't have 500% declines, but whatever. But yeah, a couple other things. First, on the deficit, he said that Congress had looted trillions from the Treasury, presumably under the Biden administration. If you look at his one big beautiful bill, it would explode the deficit, take it from maybe $1 trillion to $2 or even $3 trillion. So he's going to be looting the Treasury to a far greater extent than any of them did. And then any of them did. He said that we were dead when the economy was dead when he came into power. The fact is the economy will grow more slowly this year than it did in the last year of the Biden administration by a substantial amount. So I don't know how you quite reconcile that. He said wages are up. They are up for people at the top. They're actually down in real terms for people at the bottom, and that's also contrast to the Biden administration when.
For the investor class, there are more millionaires that have been created under the Trump administration, newly minted millionaires under Trump than under Biden.
For everybody. And then on jobs, it was interesting. All he said on jobs was that 100% of jobs were created in the private sector last year because the news on jobs is really pretty bad. So we can move to the charts if you want, and I'll show you what came out this week on unemployment and on job creation. So on unemployment, jobs ticked up to unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6%, and that's up from 3.4% in April of 2023. Under the Biden administration. So you have jobs, unemployment up here, the highest it's been since 2017. If you look at a couple of the subcategories of unemployment, one thing I noticed in these numbers is black unemployment. Black unemployment is historically higher than white unemployment, but it has been spiking up this year to 8.3%, again, the highest it's been in almost a decade. And this is an interesting phenomenon. And then youth unemployment, we've talked about this before, but the news just keeps getting worse. 10.6% of people 16 to 24 who are looking for jobs are unemployed. Again, the highest in many, many years. So there's nothing really good happening here. And why is that? Because we're not creating that many jobs. We created 64,000 jobs last month, well below the amount you need to keep a growing labor force employed. But even more interestingly, Chairman Jay Powell of the Fed said a week ago that he thinks the jobs numbers in recent months have been overstated by as many as 60,000, not through any kind of malfeasance, but simply quirks of the statistical methods. He's got his own set of economists who look at this thing. If that's true, then the average number of jobs created over that period of time is actually negative. We actually would have lost almost 50,000 jobs a month during this period of time. And you compare that to the pre-COVID average, when we were adding 170,000 jobs per year. And so there's really nothing good happening on job creation and therefore on unemployment.
As we look where the jobs have been created, Steve, to your second chart, looking at the healthcare sector leading the way by a pretty big margin.
Yeah, this is also interesting because Trump is trying to bring back the manufacturing industry, the sort of core businesses that he thinks contribute to economic growth. But the picture so far, anyway, is quite different. Healthcare really has been far and away our biggest source of job creation. We do need more healthcare, and therefore we need more people. But these are not
big reason for
jobs.
this is the aging population, the baby boomers. They're going to need additional care at the physician or specialty level. And then as they age and go into nursing homes and hospice, that care
jobs that are creating things that people can buy. Social assistance is basically social workers, people that help those in need with whatever their requirements are. An important function of the government, certainly, and of private social agencies, but again, not necessarily at the core of the economy. Leisure and hospitality are actually not the best paying jobs in the world. Local government, interestingly, has increased its number of employees. And perhaps that's partly because when you look down here at where we've lost jobs, the biggest source of lost jobs is the federal government. It's everything that Trump has been doing, DOGE, and so forth. And at the state level, there's also been a small loss of jobs. And manufacturing, which, as I've said, and as everybody knows, is at the core of the Trump economic program, lost 73,000 jobs this year. As did the energy industry, another industry that is at the core of Trump's agenda, lost 17,000 jobs. So not just the total job numbers aren't great, but when you look inside of it, the categories in which we're creating jobs are perhaps not the ones that Trump himself says are important to him.
I think that Ratner was fair with his analysis. You know, this time I think he was fair, and I agree with what he said. Okay, let's go to
to Bloomberg. It looks like the House passed the GOP healthcare bill. No subsidy renewal for ACA.
Under no circumstances should the House of Representatives adjourn until we successfully extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits for tens of millions of Americans. American people deserve a vote today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, today.
Of course, that would require a Christmas miracle. And that discharge petition I mentioned, that's 7 legislative days before it hits the floor. That brings us likely well into January. So let's figure out the path forward here and exactly how we're going to fund the government past the end of the month in January. Will there in fact be regular order? Jody Arrington is with us right now, live from Capitol Hill, the Republican congressman who chairs the House Budget Committee, the voice of Texas, with us on Bloomberg TV and radio. Mr. Chairman, welcome back. It's great to have you on Bloomberg, and I'm wondering what you see here with what seems like a dozen different bills to attack healthcare reform or extend subsidies to some extent. Is there any chance of a deal coming together between now and the end of the month?
Not one that's going to become law, Joe. Let me start by saying Democrats created this additional layer of COVID or Obamacare subsidy during COVID, and then they extended it for another 2 years. So they had total control of Congress. They had the White House. They didn't extend it then. They didn't make it permanent. They did make the green energy tax subsidies for corporations permanent. So they had a choice. So these are expiring as designed, just like every other COVID program has wound down as COVID is behind us. So the other piece that is important is the COVID subsidies and the underlying program, Obamacare, has increased deductibles and premiums every year. So the question should be, how do we make healthcare affordable? And at least the bill that was passed, I don't think it will become law, but the Republicans passed out of the House last night, will reduce premiums, according to CBO, by 11%, save $30 billion. Those are the things we need to be working together on, not throwing good money after bad and propping up a failed system.
Well, you know, Congressman, we've even had some Democrats on the air here who say you're right. This is a program that needs reform, but we also need a bridge, whether it's a year or two, whatever the extension needs to be, so people don't get bit when they wake up the first morning in January with what I realize are already higher premiums. But you've got open enrollment that goes to the 15th. Is there a world in which that could be extended and a shock absorber essentially could be put on?
You know, I don't believe so, Joe. And I got to tell you, my position is we already have tax subsidies built into Obamacare that effectively subsidize people at the bronze level at 90% of their premiums. So that's the subsidy that taxpayers front at about 60 to 70 billion a year. Now that cost is double when you add these COVID era subsidies. So you would have to do a lot. The Democrats haven't included any of these things, but you'd have to put an income cap so you're not subsidizing wealthy people. You've seen the CBO reports and the GAO reports about the tens of billions of fraud, the millions of ineligible people. So I understand some of my colleagues wanting a bridge, but the point is we're well beyond COVID. They designed these things to wind down and go away. We should focus on the things like we did in last night's bill. Close the loophole that allows insurance companies to actually direct people to higher cost coverage plans that they don't want or need. And that will start reducing the premiums and the cost of care. And there are plenty of other ways to do it, many of which, Joe, are bipartisan. So I think we throw plenty of subsidy. Unfortunately, we're throwing the subsidy at the wrong place. It's to the insurance company and not to the individual and family. So we should work together to make ACA actually affordable, the private market affordable, and bring costs down altogether.
You saw the Republican bill in the Senate, inspired by Senator Bill Cassidy, that features health savings accounts. Mr. Chairman, is that an idea that we should be considering in the House?
Absolutely. We actually we expanded health savings accounts in the big, beautiful bill that passed. We should do more, again, to provide federal assistance to people, let them keep more of their money to provide health care for their families and not line the pockets of insurance companies. They're the only ones that have actually done well since the advent of Obamacare. So there's that. There's the health reimbursement accounts. It's similar, where small businesses can provide these health savings accounts for their employees. That there are things that we're doing now that are just plain ridiculous. We're paying hospitals more for the same outpatient procedures that we pay physician groups to do. And if we equalize those payments, by the way, the outcomes are the same. If we equalize those payments, we'd save $150 billion, and we'd stop this consolidation of physicians in one big hospital. Big hospital, big insurance, big pharma. These monopoly forces are making the markets not competitive, and they are not giving the choices to the consumer and patients.
Yeah.
And that, at the crux of it, that's what's the problem is. Too many mandates, too many loopholes, too many regulations, too many taxes. We got to clean it up and let competitive markets do what they do best, and that's providing the best quality at the best cost for a product for consumers.
You're the chairman of the Budget Committee. Of course, Congressman, what are we in for here when you come back in January? Because there seems to be a little bit louder talk, and I realize Chuck Schumer was very clear he doesn't want a government shutdown, but there's talk about sleepwalking into a shutdown again with a lack of trust between Democrats and Republicans. Maybe we want to park that over here from now, because I know that you're hoping to see regular order come.
Let me just interject really quick. Please go to my store, get the resveratrol. This will help with the youthful gene expression, get rid of cells that are in senescence, and help the health of the mitochondria. You'll have more energy. This stacks really well with C60. Now, when you take resveratrol, it'll help also the basal layer of your skin, so your skin will improve. This is part of the reason why you look younger when you take resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. Make sure that you take it every day, especially with C60.
It's a big, beautiful bill. Let's do it to make healthcare affordable. Not just lower taxes, not just better energy policies, not just cutting spending so we can actually reduce the pressure on the higher prices and inflation. Let's make healthcare affordable. That will bring costs down, make life more affordable, cost of living will go down, things will get better, but healthcare's got to be addressed, and I think the only way to do it, Joe, unfortunately, because I think it's better when we can work together, but we shouldn't apologize for using reconciliation and having taking a unilateral approach as Republicans if we believe in our policies, and I certainly do.
Well, it gives us a bit of a sense of where we're heading in the new year. Mr. Chairman, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being with us. He's chairman of the Budget Committee in the House, Jody Arrington of Texas. On this CPI day, I know you're having trouble following the data. Everyone is right now because it's dropping at various times still because of the government shutdown, the longest in history. And we don't even have a complete view. Not all the data were collected here, but we've got a number for November on inflation in this country. Dare I say affordability? The president talked about it a lot last night, and what we have here is the headline he was hoping to read. Core CPI easing to a 4-year low in shutdown impacted report. First person we wanted to call today was Liz Pankati, the managing director of policy and advocacy at the Groundwork Collaborative. She's been digging through the numbers since 8:30 this morning, with us now live on Bloomberg TV and radio. Liz, it's great to see you. Do the numbers, when you look under the hood, fulfill the headline?
You know, it's tough to see what we're looking at under the hood today, given the missing data that we've got from BLS, given the effects of the government shutdown. It feels a little like we are flying blind. You know, the headline number ticked down a little bit. I assume the president had seen that by the time he gave his primetime speech last night. But when we look under the hood, there is a little bit of funny business going on. For one, the BLS imputed zeros for shelter inflation in October, giving missing data. Unfortunately, as a result of that and some other collection issues, we probably won't have a really solid, accurate accounting of inflation until probably the April print as things iron out. And so I think as the Fed looks at this ahead of their January meeting, I think we're probably set to really look at that January print for December data and potentially even into February with that January data to see things iron out.
What worries you in here? I know the core number impressed a lot of people. Markets are feeling pretty good about it. We're talking about a rate cut in January, but you're still looking at beef prices up 21% in November, coffee up 19%, banana prices up 7%. Real people buy this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think especially as we head into the holidays here, we are really seeing grocery prices affect people. Utility bills are up, energy is up 6.9%. I think those pressure points in the winter are always a little bit tougher given, large holiday gatherings and high heating bills, especially in the colder regions, the Northeast and the Midwest. Those are really going to take effect on people. At Groundwork, we had analysis out just 2 weeks ago that showed that popular holiday gifts are up 26% this year, given so many of those are imported from China and tariff rates are just really high. So while the headline number, might seem a little bit optimistic, as we look at what expectations are, the New York Fed's November survey, Conference Board data, University of Michigan, all of those are showing that American families don't feel like relief is coming.
So does the market have this right about January, or does the Fed need to see more?
I think the Fed will want to see more. I think given the missing data, we'll see where PCE comes in and what was imputed for that. But just given the lack of data we have for October, November, I think the Fed is going to want to see things iron out a little bit more. Also with the labor market ticking, the unemployment rate ticking up earlier this week, I think that the combination of those things will probably see the Fed hold off in January to get a little bit more information under our belts. Additionally, I think as part of the price collection for November, a lot of that data was collected during Black Friday sales and other promotions. And so just waiting to see what price decreases or lower price increases stick. I think the Fed will want a little bit more information before making a policy move.
You stay up late to watch the president last night, Liz?
I did, though it wasn't a very long speech. As you said, we're running on a speedboat, I think, a couple minutes ago.
That it was a speech on a speedboat, but he talked a lot about what you and I are talking about. And in fact, ran through prices. He had Thanksgiving turkey down 33%, eggs down 82%. He said everything else is falling rapidly. Here's a sense of the president in his primetime address.
We're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. Wages are rising much faster than inflation. There are more people working today than at any time in American history. 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call warrior dividend before Christmas. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies. I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history.
Okay, a lot of that. We're bringing the economy back from the brink of ruin. He said there, Liz, wages rising faster than inflation, more people working today than at any time in American history. Is all of that supported by data?
What we saw in the jobs report this week, we saw the unemployment tick up a little bit. We've seen retailers say that they are hiring a lot fewer seasonal employees this year. Real wages are not looking so hot. I don't see a lot of truth in the president's statement. It was kind of funny. I think Mike Consul pulled the spreadsheet of CPI data and just sorted by descending to see what price points he pulled out. I was confused by airfares and sports tickets, but I thought those were funny ones to pull out. And apparently, if you just sort by the biggest numbers, that's where you got them. I think for most families, they're not even thinking about the price of airfares or sports tickets right now because they're struggling to pay the grocery bill and the electric bill.
Oh, you're making me want to fly somewhere. Just 30 seconds here left. Liz, are you still waiting for the real impact of tariffs because of front running? When does it show up?
Yeah, I think we're seeing this in Christmas presents right now under the tree. Harvard Pricing Lab shows that goods prices are up about 7% from their pre-Liberation Day trend. And I think Goldman still has the estimate at about 55% of tariffs being passed through. I think we are at the tail end of those inventories that were kind of inflated, rushing ahead of that Liberation Day. The president's still not figured out exactly what's going on with China. So TBD there.
Yeah. TBD could be an interesting new year for a lot of reasons. Following our conversations with Liz Bencotti. Thank you, Liz. And Jody Arrington. Better fasten the chin strap. Our conversation.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, or MCT coconut oil. C60 needs to be in an oil for proper absorption. Preferably, take a teaspoon a day on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout so you're soaking up the free radicals and you'll recover quicker. By taking C60 every day, you're soaking up free radicals. It's 1,000 times more potent than a molecule of vitamin C. And by soaking up free radicals, you're helping your immune system, your endocrine system, your cardiovascular system, even your brain function. Why? By soaking up free radicals, you're reducing stress in tissues, reducing stress in the cells, you're bringing down inflammation, you're also soaking up those free radicals and reducing damage that the free radicals does to the tissue and the cells. And by soaking up those free radicals, your mitochondria is going to become healthier, more robust, produce more ATP, you'll have more energy. And when your cells and tissues have more energy, they perform better. Now, at the vascular level, by soaking up free radicals, you're reducing the concentration of oxidized LDL, and therefore you're reducing plaque formation. At the neuron level, by bringing down stress in the neuron's healthier, and the health of the mitochondria in the neuron is improved. You have more ATP, more energy to produce neurotransmitters, and the neuroplasticity ends up improving, so you're thinking faster and you have better memory. C60 is the cornerstone of slowing down the aging process. Now, you can stack this with resveratrol to improve the basal layer of your skin, so the new skin cells that are being produced from the basal layer are healthier, and therefore, over time, your skin improves. In addition, C60 is the second pillar of this core protocol. The core protocol is as follows: multivitamin and a probiotic. That's the foundation. First pillar, max 35 or cleanse to boost up the immune system. C60 is the second pillar, soak up those free radicals. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to bring down inflammation, to improve your immune system, and boomer boost to rev up your energy levels and your metabolism. And if you do that stack, you're going to slow down the aging process, boost up that immune system, improve your endocrine system, improve your brain function. And if you pay attention to what ages you, you are targeting all those points, pressure points, and you're slowing the aging process. This protocol that I have is the most comprehensive anti-aging protocol that's affordable anywhere. No one is more comprehensive on this than I am. Nobody. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. All righty. Let's listen into Bloomberg.
So all day long here at Bloomberg, we have got stocks advancing, the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ solidly in the green. CPI Thursday. We've got NASDAQ up now by 1.8%, higher by 407 points. Data showing inflation cooled last month, igniting a stock and bond rally. Right now we have got the S&P up 74, up 1.1%. Dow Industrials up 213, up by about 0.5. NASDAQ 100 index up 1.9%. 10-year at 4.12% with a 2-year, 3.47%. Spot gold down $5 the ounce, 43.33, down 0.1%. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 0.9%. WTI 56.45 a barrel. Bitcoin up 0.6%, 86,450 now on Bitcoin. Instacart shares are lower after Reuters reported that the Federal Trade Commission has sent the grocery delivery company a civil investigative demand. The FTC declined to comment but told Reuters it is, quote, disturbed by what it's read in the press about Instacart's alleged pricing practices. Instacart down now by 2.3%. And just getting word that Sterling Anderson, the executive leading GM's tech push, is emerging as the frontrunner to eventually succeed CEO Mary Barra when the 63-year-old retires from the storied automaker. Now, Anderson joined the company as chief product officer in June after working for
I think Bara is not that great of a CEO for GM. I think she was terrible at running GM, but that's my.
Big stocks higher, S&P up 1.1% for on-demand news 24 hours a day. Subscribe to Bloomberg News now, wherever you get your podcasts. Balance the Power continues now. In fact, we go to Washington. Once again, your host here is Joe Matthew.
Okay, Charlie, thank you so much. You'll have more on Wall Street in just about 20 minutes' time, live from World Headquarters in New York. It appears the paranoia was well placed. The paranoia we discussed among marijuana investors just a couple of days ago with Nathan Dean at Bloomberg Intelligence. There was fear that Lucy might be about to pull the football again. Yeah, big house party set to start in about 7 minutes at the White House with the president putting pen to paper or Sharpie to something to sign a rescheduling of cannabis that would unlock a more favorable tax treatment status, they say, for cannabis companies around the country. But pot stocks have turned decidedly lower today, with great disappointment about what this order apparently will include. A briefing with reporters earlier reportedly includes that the president will direct the Attorney General to expedite and complete the marijuana rescheduling process and allow doctors to prescribe CBD products that would be eligible for Medicare coverage and more. CBD products are different than THC products, so don't smoke them if you got them, because that might not be covered. We're going to find out shortly when the president emerges. We haven't seen this on a piece of paper yet. Now, I've got more for you. The press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, just a short time ago announcing on social media that there's a new name for the Kennedy Center. Taking to X to write, I have just been informed that the highly respected board of the Kennedy Center, some of the most successful people from all parts of the world, have just voted unanimously to rename the Kennedy Center to the Trump Kennedy Center. Congratulating in this note, not only President Trump, but likewise, she says, congratulations, President Kennedy, because this will be a truly great team long into the future. We need to get to Tyler. She's on the north lawn of the White House right now, Washington correspondent. Tyler, everyone saw this coming, right? The president made himself the chairman of the board.
Right. This was, I guess, long expected, considering it's really the latest effort under this Trump administration to remake the institution here in the nation's capital. Of course, you'll recall back in February, we saw that major shakeup of the board. Many members that had been appointed under the last administration were fired. And as you mentioned, we saw President Trump himself appointed as the new chair. Now, there is reporting that this vote happened with President Trump phoning into the meeting. That's according to some media reports that have already started circulating after this tweet was posted by the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. Worth also mentioning the last part of that post on X. She says that the building will no doubt attain new levels of success and grandeur, in her words. Important context here, you'll recall when the One Big Beautiful Bill passed this summer, tucked inside of it was $257 million appropriated specifically for a renovation of the Kennedy building. So, Joe, this really, as we're discussing, is the latest in what has been a series of steps this year, both with the institution itself, but of course the backdrop that this is in the nation's capital. And President Trump has tried to assert his authority here in the nation's capital, including when it comes to the National Guard and crime and working with the local government.
We've, of course, seen ticket sales impact.
I really don't care about the Kennedy Center. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lignans. This will help to boost up your immune system and endocrine system, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. Ashwagandha root controls the cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, brings down inflammation. Turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. Now, when you stack these together, magic happens, all right? When you stack them together, you're going to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. You're going to prevent further plaque buildup. By bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals, you're also helping the health of your neurons. So there's added benefit to this. Boost up that immune system, bring down that inflammation, slow down the aging process, okay? It's especially important to take this during the winter season to boost up that immune system. Please go to my store, get this stack, and add it to some of the other supplements that I've mentioned, including the core protocol. Now, you pay attention. If you listen to me during this broadcast, and many of the broadcasts I do, I have just given you the recipe to slow down the aging process. And you won't need as much reliance on allopathic medicine. When you get into your geriatric years, you're going to have more vitality, more longevity. You have to invest in your own body because no one else will. And when you do start having a problem and you go to a doctor, you'll start to realize they can't solve it. They can treat it, but they can't solve it in most cases. So you can either take my advice or don't take my advice. It's up to you. But my protocol works. Please go to my store. Make sure you use discount 5. You get $5 off. And you get a free gift if you spend $100 or more until supplies last. That's the end of my broadcast. Thank you for listening. Please go to my store. Get the supplements. I want you to get healthy. Because if everybody did this, we wouldn't have a healthcare problem.